My wrestling career was started in Florida. I grew up in Florida. I used to watch wrestling at the Fort Homer Hesterly Armory and go to the Sportatorium to watch the TV tapings. Eddie Graham was running the territory back then. My older sister took me to wrestling my first time and sat up in the balcony and loved it. Not even knowing at that time, Hulk Hogan was in the front row. I was a big wrestling fan. Through the course of high school, we all went to the same school. Hulk Hogan went to the same school with my older sisters. He was a musician. I got to know who he was. Eventually met him, and then actually started working out. He was 3 years older than me, so I was the young kid, and they used to pick on me all the time. Say, hey, we're all gonna meet up at 9 o'clock and go to the beach. Well, I'd show up at 9 o'clock, but they would get there at 8 o'clock and leave. And then all be laughing at me and everything. And here I'd come later on, somehow show up. I was like the redheaded stepchild that nobody wanted around. But, I was working out. I was small, 6 foot tall, 165 pounds. Definitely not wrestling material, but a good athlete. I was interested in getting, lifting weights and getting bigger. And basically, after hanging out and training with Hulk for a couple of years with his friends, he was a musician. The wrestlers all used to come to the bars he played in. He had a crazy good band. And they said, hey, you're big. He's 6'6". You gotta be a wrestler. Everything about wrestling? He said, I love wrestling, but never thought about wrestling. He said, you should think about wrestling. We could hook you up and go in there. So he did. He went in. The guy who trained for Eddie Graham was Hiro Matsuda, an Olympic medalist. And first day in, they exercised him for about an hour and a half. Calisthenics, push-ups, and he till the point where his tongue was hanging out, he could barely even stand up. And then Hero took him in the ring. The first thing he did was post his ankle, break his ankle, break his leg. So basically, they were just discouraging him. He was a long-haired musician, not the kind of wrestler that they were looking for. They were looking for high school, college, somebody with background in amateur wrestling and everything. And so he wound up, having to recover and going back. And he went back to try to complete the school, and they trained him. I don't know if Brian Blair was involved in that training at that time, but they had their guys that trained. And he finished their training school, and they basically would book him in Miami and Tallahassee. And those towns were 250 miles away. In those days, the pay was like $25. So you couldn't even make enough to cover your gas money to go up there and back. And that was their way of discouraging them, telling them they didn't want him in the business. And so he's seeking alternate means. He called a friend of his that owned a bar in Cocoa Beach. The guy said, if you ever want to do something, let me know. Give me a call. So he called the guy. And he said, yeah, come on over. You can work at the bar. We'll make a little gym so you can train and get ready and then try again. So he went to all his best friends, and tried to get somebody to go with him. And nobody was willing to quit their cushy jobs with the city or, with benefits and insurance and all that to go be a wrestler on the road. Are you kidding me? It's like, and I was 18, probably just out of high school, just starting junior college and working a dead-end job. And he finally, I was the last one on the list, and called me up and said, yeah, I'll go for it. And so, boom, off to Cocoa Beach we go. We trained him for 18 months, 6 days a week, twice a day, 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night. He went from 255 to 325 pounds And I went from a basic 165 pound, 6'1" guy to 250 pounds. And he knew Bob Root, who was a wrestler, and called Bob. Bob called Jim Barnett from the Atlanta territory. The next thing you know, we were in front of a bunch of management people, and they took one look at it. Hulk at 6'6", me at 6'4". Their eyeballs were spinning around their heads. They were like, "Oh God, this is the greatest thing ever." And then that was the birth of the Boulder brothers. Terry and Eddie Boulder was born. They sent us off to Pensacola, Florida, for the force to begin our really more intensive training. That's where I was really started training. He had already had some training, but and that's where we started. That was the start.
Was Ole Anderson the booker in Atlanta at that time?
Yes, he was.
I've heard that he didn't think like there was too big of a role for Hulk to do at that time. Was there any?
He didn't. I mean, that's the main reason why we didn't get a break. Bring us right into Atlanta. Why not bring us right into Atlanta, right there, and train us? And you know, there was a lot of what's the word? When you don't like people who aren't like you.
Right. Resentment, I guess, because you guys had the physiques and he was more of a gruff feel.
We were a couple of long hair, physique type guys. Ole Anderson, big, fat, tubby looking, old time wrestler looking guy. And we were new generation, the next generation of wrestlers who would begin to come along. And there was a lot of resentment. Those guys didn't want to see us, taking any of their money. So they didn't help a bit.
The Honky Tonk Man has told me that when you were in that next territory, I think you said Pensacola.
This was the first, Memphis.
Memphis. Were you rooming with Honky Tonk Man at one of those points? He had mentioned that him and his partner had taken you and Hulk as roommates to help you guys out at one point in your younger days.
Roommates. We might have stayed with him once or a couple times when we first came in to visit, so we really found our thing. At that time, in Pensacola, we had a van, a custom van that we picked up from the bar owner in Florida. It was a nice custom van, and basically that's what we lived in Pensacola. We lived in our van, made enough money to buy gas and eat, and buddy, let me tell you, we ate a lot, It's 325 pound, both of us were benching in excess of 450, squatting 500. We do 2 1/4 military presses, seated, pretty strong couple of young lads there, and we ate a lot. And when we went to Memphis for the Jarretts, for Jerry Jarrett, and then that's when they began to start calling Terry the Hulk. They shot this little little thing of him, and started his feet, came up, it's big, tan, gigantic Terry the Hulk and stuff. And I think we lived in Nashville. Most of the other guys, no, we didn't live in Nashville. Most of the guys lived in Nashville. We lived in Memphis, because I remember we were not far from where the Elvis estate was.
Okay.
We lived in a Days Inn, and just a hotel room basically with 2 beds in it, and that's when we lived. That was our housing at that time. And
I've read that Hulk was saying in the past in some of his books that that's when you guys started to make a little bit of money in the Memphis days and started to get over.
Oh yeah, we had they were selling out. A couple of new, young, exciting stallions. The people were excited. Jerry Lawler was the top guys in there, and he had his clique. He was, in a way, probably excited to see blood coming in, but on the other hand, not wanting to see these guys come in taking his money. Because, he's had his little deal there, and his main event, he had his deal. He's making, guys like us threatened him. You think it would be a good thing that's going to bring us all up. We're all going to draw better houses. We're all going to make more money. And the guys didn't think that way. They didn't want to give up any of their money to us. So there was always something going on there. Which was evident when they took and separated us. And, so working tag team matches. They started making, us work single matches. Right. And it wasn't long after that when we wound up leaving.
And where did you go from there?
And then Memphis, I think we went home for a little while. And then, Memphis was 78, I think. The next territory we went to, I went to Bill Watts' territory in Oklahoma. Hulk went to Atlanta. And used to live at the Falcon's Rest. You know that name? But and that was the famous spot where all the boys lived. It was like a little hotel. A little lady kind of ran it, looked after all the boys. Heck of a spot. And
how did you get along with Bill Watts?
I got along with him. I mean, actually, one time we were going to the airport, some fan, this lady had, without my knowledge, stuck a pair of brass knucks in my bag. And I was going through the airport and one day with them, and my bag went through the machine, and also security, man, people were running, and the blue lights and everything was. And they were ready to arrest me. I had no idea there was brass knucks in my bag. And because Watts was so well known, he was able to calm everybody down and just, they just tossed them in the garbage can and then we kept going. But I mean, he had a great territory going there. Gino Hernandez, Stan Hansen, DiBiase, Pork Chops Cash. And, I mean, there was a huge amount of guys working for that territory. They had a great territory going. They did their TV in Shreveport, Louisiana, and they wound up putting me with Buck Robley, who was a complete screw up. And all he did was go from horse track to horse track all over the state and in between wrestling matches. And they put me with him. So it was a little bit difficult for me to get to the gym and get decent food. We didn't even stay in hotels that time. We slept in a car. And basically I got the shit beat out of me. Pork Chops Cash spiked me on my shoulder, separated my shoulder. Mike, what's his name? The guy from that was in the New York territory. He used to always take showers.
Oh, Mike Sharp.
Mike Sharp, Iron Mike Sharp, was in the territory, and Mike Sharp kind of befriended me and allowed me to stay at his apartment because I had nowhere to go because I couldn't work for a couple of weeks while I recouped, and they helped me out. Ivan Koloff was in the territory. Ivan was a super nice guy. I just ran into him recently, and I told him, I said, I'll never forget when these guys were beating the shit out of me. Gino Hernandez was one of them. They just took advantage of me. I was just, I guess, happened to a lot of guys. I mean, that's, I guess, the way of discouraging people, making you pay your dues. Well, buddy, I paid my dues. I suffered a lot of injuries and a lot of pain at the expense of those guys taking advantage of me as a young guy. And finally, I was having trouble working because I couldn't get to the gym. I had no money at all. I didn't have an apartment, didn't have a vehicle, and basically I was in the world of trouble. And I got a call from Hulkster, and he was like, "Well, what's going on down there?" I said, "Get me out of here, because otherwise I'm done. Because they're going to kill me. They're going to just beat me to death. I'm not going to, I'll be injured to the point I won't be able to even work. And so he said, okay, go to the airport and there'll be a ticket for you. So when I had talked to him, I gave Watts a notice. I always gave a 2-week notice. So I gave him my notice. And right before it was the last TV, right before I was going to leave, they came to me and said, oh, we want you to stay another 2 or 3 weeks, whatever, until they get another TV so they could job me out and just, boom, one more time. And I said, sorry, but I can't. I gave my notice the way you're supposed to, and I'm leaving. So Watts gave me the screw job, kept my money. So basically I had nothing, no money in my pocket.
He always withheld pay 2 weeks, right? From what I hear.
Yeah, they had some funny things going on there. Yeah, they really screwed me. I mean, they never had any money, hardly. They paid me nothing.
Before you move on from the Mid-South, Gino Hernandez died of cocaine overdose.
Yeah.
Some people were saying they believe he was murdered because it was found in his stomach. Do you believe anything like that, or do you think it was just...
He had a serious drug problem. He was a partying. I mean, like animals, intense, crazy partying, drinking, alcohol, the whole thing. I don't think so. I think if anything, karma. I believe in big time. And if anything, karma caught up with him. And the last night I was in the territory, I'll never forget this either. I was in Jackson, Mississippi. And I was trying to get to the airport. We worked my last show. It was pouring down rain, and it was one of the guys I had been with. What was his name? He was a big black guy. He was an ex-football player. I can't remember his name. He had been helping me out, and I went to DiBiase. I went to St. Hanson. I went to all the guys to get a ride to the airport. And those guys all lived there. And nobody would even bother, And so he had, I guess, his girlfriend. So I wound up jumping in a car with like 4 black chicks in a Camaro or something. My bags in there. And they drove me to the airport. And I got on a plane and got the hell out of there. And it was like, that was the greatest day of my life. Because that was the biggest nightmare. And Junkyard Dog was there, Jake was there. I mean, they had a hell of a territory. Grizzly, Jake's father or whatever. I mean, it was a crazy good territory. No doubt about it. The Watts, knew how to run a territory and they made money. Boy, I suffered at their expense. But it was a good learning exercise. I learned a lot, and after that, I began to know how to take care of myself, and I wouldn't be taken advantage of on that scale ever again.
And you mentioned Jake. You want to just give me your thoughts on Jake? Because I'm sure.
Back then, Jake was crazy, good worker, and he wasn't on the crack pipe like back in those days. I mean, everybody drank, and I just whatever, snorting and pills, and then they're doing whatever they're doing. And but Jake, back then, I remember his interviews and his work was unbelievable. He was one of the guys that I looked to, try to imitate, and learn from. Ivan Koloff too. I mean, he used to take me to eat out, somewhere to eat, take me to the gym whenever we run into each other, we'd be in the same town or something, because he knew I was floundering.
And just while we're still on your early days a bit, superstar Billy Graham, obviously Hulk Hogan looked up to him a lot. That was one of his idols when he was younger. What did you think of Billy Graham growing up in Florida?
Well, Billy, I met him, and I used to watch him all the time in Florida. Again, one of those guys, Florida was a big territory. A lot of guys came in there. And Hulk and I would go meet Billy. And so I would watch him work out in the gym. I remember he was just huge, massive. And he would take us down to the local buffet. It's called Morrison Cafeterias. and treat us to a meal. You know, it was like back then it was probably like $7, and you know, and it was just all you could eat. You get a big tray this big, and you go down the line, boom, 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 and you just keep coming back, you know. And I guess we were short on cash those days.
Is it true that he helped Hulk get books, particularly when he was kind of being blackballed in Florida, helped him get booked in Alabama the first time?
I really don't know for sure. I mean, there was definitely a couple of people that made calls to help us get that at Pensacola, Alabama. Mr. Fullers, the Welshes, Louis Tillett, that make most people laugh when they hear that. Iron Mike McCord was one of the guys that was there in Florida.
And when did you actually start calling yourself Brutus Beefcake? Were you ever that before WWE?
No, that never happened until late '83, early '84.
Okay. Were you ever in the AWA?
Oh yeah.
How did you end up in that? You want to tell us about your AWA experience?
Well, okay. Got a call from Vern Gagne. It was 1980, 81. He'd already been to New York once. And while he was there, I was with him for a short time. And at the TVs in Allentown and Hamburg. And Pat Patterson wanted to job me out on TV like Steve Lombardi. He wanted to turn me into another Steve Lombardi. And basically helped us. No. And somebody made a call for me, and they sent me out to Oregon for a year. I went out to Oregon and for Don Owen, and it was just a good learning territory. It was the first place that Kurt Hennig had ever began working. And Kurt's father came out there and worked with Stan Stasiak was out there, David Schultz, Buddy Rose, Matt Bourne, Dutch Savage was the booker. It was a great learning territory. You work every night. You know, you begin to start doing you're doing TV every week. You start doing the interviews. You begin to learn. It was there when I first began to really start learning a little bit about really how to work and being aware of the crowd, and not just being like out there in the rain, just totally oblivious, struggling and everything. I began to find myself out there a little bit, and I really made some real big gains there.
So you mentioned the older days of WWE where Hogan would have been Sterling.
Sterling Gold.
So you were around in WWE that day. You want to talk about your first?
Well, I didn't. I came in from that Louisiana territory with a bad shoulder and probably about 220 pounds that I hadn't trained in months, and with no food and no apartment, nowhere to stay. So I came in Hulk. In those days, you drove, and back in Memphis, we had Hulk had bought a big green Lincoln Continental, and that's what we drove in Memphis. And we still had that car in New York. So we loaded up the car every day. We went to the gym every morning. We had a big cooler in the back. We filled it full of food and waters. And back then it wasn't even real beer. We weren't drinking beer on trips or anything like that. We had yogurts, milk, sandwiches, food in the cooler. And down there, we drove. We lived in Connecticut. We lived in Connecticut. And we drove to Baltimore, to Philly, to Scranton, Pennsylvania, to Harrisburg, to New Hampshire, to Portland, Maine. It was all the trips were in a car. Occasionally they did run some farther away towns, but then they'd fly the guys. But I was just there at that point and not really working, just driving, the wheelman for Hulk and recovering, getting back in shape, getting ready. And occasionally somebody wouldn't show up, so they'd throw me into a match. In those days, they used to pay cash every night. Arnie Skoll would come to the dressing room, pay the first, second, third, pay the matches, pay the matches. And I remember one night I had Hartford, Connecticut, or Springfield, somewhere. I had worked the first or second match, and had the match came back, and Skolin came in and handed me like $400 or $500. And I was like, oh my God, this is more than they made in months for a match. And I, tucked it away. And Hulkster said, hey, what would they give you? I said, he gave me $500. He went, he said, oh my God, don't let any of the other guys know that they gave you that much. Because like Johnny Rods and guys like that, Jose, Puerto Rican guys, the regular crew guys that were working the under matches got about $200 a night. So they gave me $500. Why, I had no idea, but boom, I was like, oh my God. And then, so once I got back in shape, I think I went to Charlotte, North Carolina, for a short stint, and then it was after that Hulk was working for Vince. He was going to Japan. He got to go to Japan, going back and forth. Sylvester Stallone contacted Hulk by telegram. It was called the office and everything. Wanted him to do that bit in Rocky III. Well, Vince Sr., there was no crossover from the entertainment business, the movies, and they hated wrestling, and wrestling hated them. And there was no crossover. Vince just said, absolutely under no circumstances will Hulk go to do this movie. And I mean, Stone tried everything. Finally, somebody hand-delivered at Madison Square Gardens a telegram from Sylvester Stallone to him. And he got it, and he made the call, talked to him, and he went to Vince, and Vince fired him on the spot. And at that time, I was working in Nashville. Me and Hector Guerrero living in his trailer park. And Terry flew to Nashville, stopped in to see us, and then went on out, did the bit for Rocky, which, once that came out, that changed everything. Boom, all of a sudden, bam. That's when Vern Gagne called him, and then that's when Terry called me, said, hey, I worked for Vern Gagne, come home to Florida, flew home to Florida, packed up a car, and I drove by myself to Minneapolis with the car, and then he wound up flying in after that, and then boom, we had an apartment. We lived in an apartment, and I was working as Dizzy Golden or something like that. I think Dizzy Ed Boulder or something like that. And
is that something you came up with, or is that?
Well, we were the Boulder brothers.
Yeah.
Then when they split us up, and Terry was working in Atlanta, they called him Sterling Golden, and they were calling me Dizzy Golden. And then when I left there, stuff, and Terry Funk was calling me Dizzy, so that name kind of stuck, and so everybody called me Dizzy Ed, Dizzy, whatever, and then eventually the next territory was Dizzy Hogan, because everybody still was convinced that we were brothers. And but I mean, it was a logical assumption. Two gigantic blonde hair, mustache, big thing, mustache, big monster guys. You didn't really look alike at all, but
How did you get along with Vern?
I never really spent a lot of time with him. Terry was with him a lot more than me. Greg, his son, wanted to hang out with Terry. I was there, and obviously I was an obstacle. And Terry wasn't going to have anything to do with Greg. He was a nerdy looking guy, great, good wrestler, he could wrestle, but he was never going to be a New York, Madison Square Garden caliber wrestler. I mean, he did with the super push and beating. This guy weighed maybe 190 pounds or something. Beating guys 6'6", 290, 320 pounds. Because he's the office. And established. And he was jealous of me, and then next thing you know, I was gone. And I went back to Pensacola. But in the meantime, Hulkster was doing well. He had that real American, red, white, and blue thing going. He was finding us some niche, coming out with a flag and thing and getting this, developing that character, which he was able to just turn over right into the red and yellow Hulk Hogan gimmick when he hit New York.
Were you shocked that he became as big as he did eventually, or did you always know, even from the early days?
Well, definitely not shocked, but I mean, there's always, everywhere we went, for years and years, there was always an aura about the both of us. Everywhere we went, we took the room over. We walk in a room, we dominated it. The space, wherever we were, it didn't matter where it was. And so I knew at that point, something's going to happen. It's hard to know how huge it's going to get, WrestleMania and all that kind of stuff, and then as big as it became. But we worked hard to get where we're at, and never slacked off. Never just said, I'm going to take 6 months off and lay on the beach and do some shit like that. No, it was just bang, bang, hard at it all the time. And Terry was smart about the business in that way. He had some help from people and stuff along the way, and he was able to sharpen that pencil down, hone that persona down, and then Vern Gagne tried to put him under his thumb. He had Nick Bucknell was the champion. Hulkster had a deal in Japan. He was going to Japan for 4 weeks, 40,000 cash for every 4 weeks back in 1980. 40, 50 grand cash was a lot of money, And Vern basically told him, okay, you're not going to Japan anymore. You're going to be our champion. You're going to make X amount of dollars and blah, blah, blah. And then that's when Vince Sr. died. Cable television was born, Atlanta Channel 17, WR from New York, and now a channel of TV was going around the whole country, and then that's when Junior jumped right in the thing there and wound up contacting Hulk and said, hey, come to New York and I'll make you a superstar of all superstars, and boom, and that's what he did. Brought him in, wrestled the Sheik, boom, 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 over 30 seconds. Boom, dropped the leg on the Sheik, bang, Hulkamania was born. And it was a whole new era, a type of, Terry always had that, he was a musician, and and had that charisma, and had that ability to get people's attention and keep it. And so he was able to capitalize on that with that type of push that Vince was giving. There was nothing that he couldn't do. Anything he wanted to do, the sky was the limit. And with those kind of tools, it's a little easier to do it. The people are scratching and clawing the thing. Once if you're handed the keys to the safe, or to the big vault where all the gold is, and they say go crazy, well, hey, that's definitely. Then there's nothing standing in your way. You're the only thing standing in your way. And he was smart. And, he ran full charged in there and took advantage of every break that Vince was offering him. And he was smart. And he did better than anybody ever could have. The wildest imagination could have imagined. And it began the era of rock and wrestling. Now musicians, Hollywood, everybody jump back now because we're drawing huge crowds, and we got their attention. Now all of a sudden they wanted to get involved with us, and it was a whole new era. MTV, VH1, MTV, Saturday night's main event, Dick Ebersol, NBC, everything, putting us on live TV on Saturday nights just changed the whole way people looked at wrestling.
So was it Hogan that brought you into WWE the second time?
I was in between. I think I was in between territories. I was in Charlotte. I left Charlotte. Was on my way home. Stopped into Philadelphia where he was wrestling, and because he was in the first 6 months But after he beat Sheik, and probably 3 months after he beat Sheik, and he was in a program with Big John Studd. And Big John Studd was supposed to go overseas and wrestle Otto Vance. Otto was like Burns' champion at one time, and he was a European champion. A huge guy, 6'1", 450 pounds, or 420 pounds, or whatever. I mean, and a huge guy. And they needed a substitute to send over to wrestle Otto in his finale of this big tournament. Every year they have a bunch of guys come over to Germany, they tour, and the finale is a big show in Graz, his hometown. He was the mayor of the town. And so they needed somebody to send. They didn't want to send Slaughter, they didn't want to send any of their top guys, because I mean, also the whole territory was on fire. Hogan had everything, everybody going nuts. Everywhere there was a show, sold out every night. So Vince didn't want to pull any of his top guys. So Hogan said, well, send Dizzy. So, from God knows why, they did. So I went over there to wrestle Otto, had a hell of a match. People said it was the best match they'd ever seen him at. He wrestled all the biggest guys in the business, but mostly he didn't do much. I was young, smaller, but a lot more agile, a lot more able to do stuff. And at the end of the day, after the match, Otto called Vince and said, if you don't put this kid to work right now, then you're stupid. You know, he's a good hand. So that phone call, basically, they said, as soon as you get back from Austria, come to New York. And we'll figure out something. And so I went, met with Vince, Linda, and Hulkster and I sat down in the office, started cooking up a character.
And that's when you came up with Brutus Beefcake.
Well, Linda came up with this name, Beefcake. They had Baron Mike Sapona. She was like a top hat and tuxedo look, and that's kind of the way she was thinking. A beefcake character, good looking, kind of male stripper kind of like character, but that's not the way they were looking at it, really. And we fished for a name. We went around and around and around and around. And finally, Hulk says, well, Brutus, like Popeye and Brutus. And they were like, yeah. And I was sitting in the room, like right there, and this is 84, the very, very beginning of 84. I've already been in the business 7 years, and now this is going to be my big break in New York, Madison Square Gardens, and eventually going worldwide. And I couldn't even say the word Brutus Beefcake almost without laughing. I mean, it was just ridiculous, crazy, comical. Like, oh my God, I was about to cry. I was like, I'm getting my big break. This is it, in the business, and my name is going to be Brutus Beefcake. I said, the people are going to laugh me out of the arena. And Hulk's like, oh, wait, don't worry about it. I got a plan. I got an idea. So, boom, split, went to Florida, went to see this guy made clothes for rock and roll bands, made clothes for Cher, made clothes for Jimi Hendrix. Cutting edge guy, way ahead of his time. Made all Hulk's clothes for his bands for years. Sat down, cooked up this kind of like male stripper looking beefcake with a bow tie, with these vests, these armbands, all spandex, animal prints, different colors, wild pink, fuchsia, blue, all this stuff. I dropped probably 30 pounds, lean way out. The last time any of these people saw me, I had long blonde hair and a beard. Shaved that beard off, cut my hair short, just like it is right now, same color, basically just like this. Walked into the office with this outfit on, and Vince fell out of his chair. He says, oh my God, how can this not make money? Because it was good. And I went to the first TV in Poughkeepsie, New York. Showed up real early. The only people there was the agents, Arnie Skolin and some of the guys. I think George Steele was there, maybe Catherine Liu. I walked in, introduced myself as Brutus Beefcake. Nobody had a clue. Nobody was privy to this whole gimmick. None of it. Who I was. I sat there for 6 hours in the dressing room. Fuji, all the boys, just sitting in the corner. Yeah, Brutus Beefcake. Finally, George Steele figured it out. He's sitting there staring at me, and he just yells, "Who the fuck are you?" And it's me, Dizzy. Because everybody had known me as Dizzy Hogan as Dizzy. And it's like fucking Fuji jumped up out of his chair, because he's the master of all the ribs. And looked at me and went, "You son of a bitch." And he just started chasing me around the dresser, and everybody was cracking up. It was hilarious. Fooled everybody. Nobody had a clue. And after that point, then it was like freaking everybody was all freaking going wild and shit. And then that's when I started going out to the ring and just walking around the ring. And that's how we started it.
And you were pretty successful as a singles heel. You wrestled Hogan in numerous main events. How did you end up becoming a tag team after that singles run?
Well, I did really well as a single. I mean, everybody who wrestled Hulk during this time period pretty much sold out. But we did have really good matches, which is, that's important too. I mean, we not only were selling out buildings, 20, 25,000 seat arenas, weeks in advance, And, there'd be 1,000 people outside the arenas on show night trying to buy tickets, scout tickets, just trying to get in there. It was insane, the amount of people. And Greg Valentine, at the time, he was the Intercontinental Champion and was working with Tito or something. And just by chance, I really don't even know why, George Scott had taken over the book, and he was a good friend of Greg's. I didn't know him at all. And for some reason, just by accident, they wound up putting Greg and I together in some tag matches for some smaller shows, because they had something that happened. Somebody had quit, somebody got hurt, or something. I don't know exactly what happened. And because of Greg's style, second generation, big, tough, rough and tough wrestler. My style, glitter, shine, stuff, strutting out there, male stripper, completely two different entities. A lot of times in the tag team, you think you want two similar guys. And that was the thinking. So by putting Greg and I together in the ring, sometimes opposites attract. We wound up having really good matches. And we wound up we had a ton of heat as heels. Greg, not so much. I mean, we had just the steady rock, but I was a flamboyant, great, just going crazy. And it was the beginning of that era when people actually began to like the bad guys, because it was always, the good guys. If you cheered for the bad guys, there'd be fights breaking out in the stands. For the people start cheering the bad guys, they'd go beat them up. And when Greg and I got together, it was a period in the business when people began to like the heels. They liked them because we were tough and good looking, and dressed crazy good, and we wrestled, and we had it all going. And the people began to cheer us. The baby faces we were wrestling, the Killer Bees, and the Rougeos and all these guys. We pounded them. We didn't give them nothing, and the people loved it, and they loved us even more. And the heels getting over, and the people, and I guess they caught on to this whole deal. They saw what's going on, And then I guess that's when somebody got the idea to put the tag team belts on us.
And you're probably one of your most famous matches of the tag team is actually when you lost the belts at WrestleMania 2 to the British Bulldogs. What did you think of the Bulldogs as a team and for their backstage antics that are kind of notorious?
The Bulldogs, when we won the belts, we were supposed to win them in Rotundo for the belts. They were going to chase us for a year. That was George Scott's plan. Well, Barry Windham quit the next day. So now we were scrambling. We had no opponents. You had the Bulldogs, but they were green. They were young. They looked good, but they weren't the caliber of a tag team that we really needed. And so we worked with the other guys, the Killer Bees and this guys and that guys and everything. But they saw something in the Bulldogs, so we kind of took them under our wing. We worked with the Bulldogs and brought them along and really schooled those guys and turned them into a good tag team. But that was still a big mistake. That WrestleMania 2, beating us WrestleMania 2 was a big, huge mistake. The Bulldogs were a good tag team, but they still couldn't talk. You had to have a manager do all their talking. And they weren't ready for the push. And at that time, it was way better to have the heels with the belt, and they can chase us around, beat us every night, but if the championships are on the line, they can get their hands raised every night, a disqualification, whatever it is, and we run out with our tails between our legs, but we got the belts. And it only made the people even more want to see us get our asses kicked. And it was about money. This was all about money. They put the belts on the Bulldogs, the belts freaking died. Big, huge mistake.
And you continued teaming with Greg for about a year until WrestleMania 3, which is when you first, I guess, became the barber. Do you want to tell us what led to the office deciding to break you guys up and turn you into this guy?
They didn't really. George Scott was still probably there, and then they didn't really tell me anything. We began to do some angles and things leading into the WrestleMania, something where Martel and Adrian Adonis were in the ring together, and Adrian was actually my partner, and Martel and Zink or somebody were in the ring. Supposedly Adrian was going to try to cut Martel's hair, but Martel did a quick switch in the corner. Adrian was looking away, and Adrian came back, started to cut away on. It was me, and then started like a little feud between me and Adrian. Adrian was in a hair match with Piper, had been in an angle with Piper, and had the big blowout. Boom. I go down, help Piper win the match. Piper sends me the Clippers, said, okay, you cut his hair. I had no knowledge of anything really going to happen there. I just, this is what we're doing. Went down there, cut his hair. We had a couple days off after WrestleMania, came back to Rochester, New York, to the War Memorial. Walked in, they handed me this white coat, a little thing with a scissor and a comb in it. I said, now you're the barber. I said, what do you mean, now I'm the barber? You're the barber. I said, fuck, are you crazy? That's bullshit. Brutus Beefcake's on fire. Since when do you change a guy's gimmick who's freaking like a top guy who's on fire on the territory? Why would you change it to some crazy thing like the barber? A hair match is something you do once a year or once in a career. And they gave me no direction, told me nothing about what's going to happen. I went nuts. I went in, the War Memorial was an old building. I went down a hallway, found a room where nobody was in, and started beating everything I could find, slamming chairs, smashing, kicking the lockers, going crazy. I was ready to quit. I was so mad. I was just thought, I don't deserve this kind of treatment. That's not what you do to somebody who works so hard to do everything you ever ask of them, never miss a day's work, never be a problem, no drugs, no alcohol, no problems, and then you screw them. you're going to give him a gimmick and then no direction, and, and Hulk started, somebody said, you better go get Beefcake, he's going crazy. And he came in and I said, what? He said, what's going on? I said, this is Pat Patterson. After all these years now, he's getting his revenge on me because you wouldn't let me be the job guy Lombardi that he wanted me to be, another blunt boy for him. And now they're screwing me. I said, where are we gonna go? Seriously, the barber thing. You know as well as I do. Now, haircut matches, when the guy was leaving the territory, you'd see a U-Haul in the parking lot in the old days in Alabama and the territories. And the guy who was leaving the territory got his haircut, took his wife, got in his U-Haul, and drove down the road. And everybody knew it. So what are we going to do with this haircut thing? And Hulk, I don't know, he came out and pulled a rabbit out of his hat. He says, well, what if every time you go to the ring, you use the sleeper hold like Piper did, use that sleeper hold. Somebody really was using it as a real finish. Use the sleeper hold every time you cut somebody's hair. And I was like, that might work. There's only one man who made that possible. If I would have went to the office guys and said, okay, here's what we're going to do. Every time I go to the ring, you have to pay somebody $200 or $300 so I can cut their hair and blah, blah, blah. It might have worked one or two TVs, and then I got brushed aside, and I could just put another guy out there wrestling. Hulk went back to Vince, and here's what we got to do. Boom, 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 boom. Then I had the balls in my court, so I had to switch gears, make up some new gear, change it up a little bit. I thought of the Clippers, getting the big Clippers. So I went out in crowds, 30,000 Madison Square Gardens, with a pair of scissors in my hand. And it's about visual thing. Those people in the top row, they can't see these little scissors in my hand. So I came up with the idea of the big hedge clippers and taped them up and shit, come out with these big hedge clippers, a barber, and I had spray paint and glitter and this and that, like mirrors, and I cut people's hair and show them the mirror, their head, half their head shaved off, and then paint with this hairspray painted, colors painted, a big B on their chest, and the people went nuts. They loved it. It's never been done anything remotely like that before. And because we just kept hammering every week, I would beat them, down they go in the sleeper, chop, and humiliate them with the things on them, showing them the hair, the whole thing. And then it wound up turning into something bigger than Vince or anybody ever even imagined. Why? I blow my own horn here a little bit. Nobody told me what to do. I was the ingredient plugged into the situation, giving the ball like the running back, brother, on the freaking 5 yards deep in the end zone. And okay, haul last, because we got to have a touchdown or the game's over. Brutus haul ass and made a touchdown. Fucking boom, there it was. Freaking home run, grand slam.
And one of your main feuds as Brutus the Barber Beefcake was with the Macho Man. You want to tell us your thoughts on the Macho Man and feuding with him because you drew some great crowds.
Macho Man, great hand. He was very temperamental. His wife, married to Liz, just he was so hard to read. Just very difficult sometimes to work with. What was a good hand, you just never know what you're going to get with him. And so it was tough, but you were always guaranteed, you're always going to have great physical interviews, physically in the ring, it's all good, you're going to have tremendous matches. But he was just a little unpredictable, and stuff like that.
What did you think about his relationship with Elizabeth?
Well, I knew, he was married. I witnessed night after night him locking her in locker rooms. Didn't want any of the boys to be around her actually locked her in there. She just had to sit in the locker room by herself, and he locked the door. I mean, he was so paranoid, he didn't want anybody to see her. And and it was almost laughable. It was almost a joke with the boys, but he was serious. I mean, dead serious about it, and everybody else was like, whatever. But Mach was crazy. I mean, there was a point where I had to fill in for Hulk in some shows that he was supposed to do wrestling, Macho Man. I remember Indianapolis, that big dome in Indianapolis, sold out show, and Hulk couldn't be there, and they replaced me, plugged me into the equation there, and I mean, you're talking about 25, check the dome, wherever it was, that Hoosier Dome, 25, 30,000 people, whatever. Not a single person wanted their money back. I slid right into the Hulk Hogan spot, wrestled Macho Man there, and that was a big ego booster for me, because going in there, I didn't know what to expect. Are there going to be 5,000 people saying, we want our money back, we want to see Beefcake. I was so hot, things were going so good, the character was on fire, slid right into the spot. On several occasions in different places around the country, wrestled Macho Man, boom, 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 and that was an indicator to them too. Then after that, that's when they pretty much decided to put the Intercontinental belt on me. And Warrior was in the mix at that point. And then...
What's your opinion on the Ultimate Warrior? And do you think you could have had a run about the level of his success had they put the title on you and given you that same push?
Oh, absolutely. I was going to get the IC belt. It was already, the pay-per-view was all set up. Basically, he threw a temper tantrum, threatened to quit. Vince was looking at him as his new Hulk Hogan, and so changed the whole pay-per-view at the last second to plug in Warrior, beats Honky Tonk in 15 seconds. Ridiculous. I knew the Warrior when he first broke in and came to the territory. Nice guy, good guy. It all went to his head, and he became unreachable. He couldn't interview. He'd be up there going, the skies. It didn't make any sense. He'd blow himself up so bad he could hardly work. Everybody hated working with him. And it's my opinion that he never even reached the level of success that I had anywhere, anytime. The guy couldn't work. He never could. I don't think he could lace up half the guy's boots. Now, I'm not trying to dog the guy's dead now, but that's the bare bones truth about it. The guy's a lot more talent and full package than he ever had. Vince just was determined to push him, as was that when he beat Hogan in Toronto, and the people booed him. Hogan went on there handing the belt, and the people were booing the Warrior out of the place. I was standing there watching it. And she figured I would have, gave him an indication, but didn't matter. He was born with the Warrior, and that was it.
And what's your opinion of Ric Flair?
Well, I like Rick. Knew him since our early days in the business. Was always real nice to me. And then later on, I guess he wrote a book. In his book, he said I was Hulk Hogan's lackey, that I didn't deserve a push, that I was just a hang around. And the only reason I got anywhere in the business is because Hulk Hogan made everybody give me a job. And he said this in his book. And I was shocked when somebody came in and showed me this. And because I never had a problem with Rick. And why, I don't know, he would say these things, because I made my own way as a single wrestler, and then as a tag team, then as a single again, and as a heel and a baby face, so I didn't need anybody to give me anything. I earned it with blood and sweat and tears. Earned it. And, you know, at this point, I lost respect for him. You know, I would be cordial and say hi to him, but I lost all respect for him at that point. You know, when a man going to try to further his career by putting me down, I'd never write a book and say, oh, Devin, geez, you know, oh, he was really a dick. He's kind of an asshole, you know, and try to make myself look better by putting you down. I do the opposite. I said, really, you know, guys like Devin, holy talent, what a hand. Unbelievable. I had great matches with these guys. I bring everybody up. Bring yourself up. Don't go the other way. Don't put everybody down. Try to make yourself look better by telling everybody else is a slouch and you're the greatest that ever was, you know. Another guy went to his head, you know, and that's evident now.
Hey, did you get along with Bret Hart?
Oh yeah. You know, I spent the night at the Hart home, Stu's house, stayed at Bret's house with his family, spent countless nights with Davey Boy Smith and his family. You know, the Harts, a big part of my life there, the Bulldogs, for many years. And, you know, great people, nice people.
And you were also a Mega Maniacs tag team with Hulk Hogan. I guess the peak of that was your WrestleMania 9 match with Money Incorporated. You also teamed up to face Zeus and Macho Man. But are you disappointed that they didn't do more with that tag team? It was kind of at the end point of Hulk Hogan's first WWE run.
Yeah, there was things. There was so much going on. The office changing there. I think the big Samoan kid, Yoko. You know, they were bringing, you know, Yoko. There was a bunch of new guys in the Undertaker, a guy that was down south in Texas working. That Hulkster got him a shot, and there was a lot of new talent running around. Things were happening different. I mean, the tag team definitely could have went on and on. No doubt about that. Things were changing. Hulk was getting ready to start filming a television series in Florida, and at that point, I was going to double him and do all the stunt work and photo double and everything for him for this TV movie and 20 episodes and on. This movie, that movie, this movie, that movie. And once we had left the territory, and then basically Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and came in, you know, on our coattails, picked up where we left off, and we're able to, you know, capitalize on these things. And you know, they stole a lot of our shit, but that's the way it works in our business. You take the best of whatever you can, and you make it your own. You know, and so there's no. I'm not mad. I'm not upset about anybody having success. I want everybody to do good. You know, everybody does the better they do, the better we all do, the more money we all make, the happier we all are. It's a good world.
So you mentioned Shawn Michaels. You were part of one of the most famous moments, I guess, in WWE history when Shawn Michaels super kicked Marty Jannetty through the barbershop window, which led to him becoming the star that he did. Do you have any memories of that?
Yeah, I liked Marty. I liked them. We worked a lot with those. They were kids. Greg and I were, you know, first working with those guys. You know, they were just a couple of mid-card kids. You know, and we tried to help them, bring them along, teach them, and then Marty. I thought Marty was really as good a worker as Shawn back then, or better, you know, psychology-wise. And I hated to see them break up because Marty obviously went off and, you know, into nothingness, and Shawn went on to be the world champion with huge success. And, you know, he definitely stole a little bit of the outfit, the clothes thing from me, and, you know, stole a little bit from Hulk. You know, took things from everybody and to make his persona and thing. But Marty was a great guy too, and Marty fell into nothingness, and a nice guy wound up, you know, being out in the world now, broke, and penniless.
And do you want to just tell us about your time in WCW? Obviously, they probably paid you well, but they were known as a kind of a disorganized company, and you went through probably the most amount of gimmicks of any wrestler in the shortest time period in history. Do you want to tell us about the time period? And also, were there any of those gimmicks that you actually preferred? Was there one particular one that you liked?
Beefcake is definitely my favorite. It's definitely the biggest of all. The problem with that time frame was that WWE trademarked my name, and technically I trademarked my name and licensed it to them, but they were somehow able to obtain a trademark on my name, and they were keeping me from being able to use my name. So we had to go outside the box and think up these man with no name, the Butcher, the Booty Man, the Zodiac, and then the Disciple, the NWO. The NWO changed the whole face of wrestling. Once again, guys, coming in, taking over with a great idea, challenging the business, challenging everybody, doing things that nobody ever thought could have been done. I don't think that was really ever used to the potential I could have been used for. There was a lot of things going on there. Guys in the office, people in certain people's ear, Eric Bischoff running the business. Whatever qualified this guy to really be running a multi-million-dollar company and being in charge of this kind of talent. I never saw any indication, period, what qualified him to be doing it. But there he was, and he had his little clique of guys that that he hung with, and certain guys were taken care of. And I was fired. I got fired twice by fax to my house. Oh, you're fired. On the phone. Hulk would go, hey, come over, let's work out. It's like, all right, I'll be in a little while. Oh yeah, by the way, got fired again today. What? Yeah. Oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. Boom. It was, but it's a little disconcerting to your family. Like your wife. I come home to find my wife laying on the floor, crying, kicking and screaming because the fact says you're fired. I just got built my house up, spent a lot of money, invested money, and everything, and relied on my job to keep my family. I had a daughter, keep my family going, and now so just like out of nowhere, you're fired for no reason. So those were difficult times, but it doesn't kill you; it makes you stronger.
Just two more questions here. The parasailing accident. You want to just give us the brief explanation of what happened there?
Had the open wear not stole my middle title shot from me, I would have never been there. It would have never happened. But 4th of July, on the day off, Brian Blair was there at Killer Beat, my friend's lake house, doing some skiing, boating, parasailing. I was in the wrong spot at the wrong instant and was struck in the face by a girl being pulled in the parachute harness. When you're in a parachute harness, your knees are together, you sit in this thing and the parachute here, and you go up in the air. She got dragged by the boat. I was trying to stop the guy driving the boat from going, but he went anyway and basically dragged her right over the top of me. I turned to look where she was precisely when she was starting to come off the ground, and her knees struck me, one right here in the teeth and one in this cheekbone. Her legs were together, and at 35 miles an hour, and it hit me so hard it disintegrated my face, structured my face, and put me in critical condition for days, and I never expected to live.
But you survived and you were able to...
the grace of God, the best palate reconstructive surgeon in the world, a guy from Armenia, just happened to be working and living in the locally in the area, and was contacted and at the hospital within hours of this accident happening, took over and basically saved my life, and was able to do a surgery of 18 hours, 5 or 6 different teams of doctors, surgeons that had to repair the damage. I was blind.
Right.
Optic nerve damage, I was blind. The first team of doctors came in, worked for 5 hours, tried to save my vision. And another team of doctors came in, checked about neurological damage, my brain bleeding, was it hemorrhaging. Then another team of doctors came in, the ear, nose, and throat people. My sinus cavities were crushed. Your sinus cavities are like little hollow areas inside of your skull, very delicate. Without being able to look at a 3D rendering of it, you really know what sinus cavities are. They're all throughout your face. And then these people had to come in and figure out a way to rebuild, to remake my sinus cavities. They were all crushed. And this doctor operated with a microscope on his head, took bone from my skull, took that bone, and was able, with strips of titanium, super strong, very light, very small strips of titanium, screws and wire, and remake my face. First peeled my face completely off, cut me from ear to ear, peeled my face off from the front, peeled the back. Was able to remake my facial structure around my eye orbits. I don't know what they made my nose out of, but it feels just like my real nose. But my nose was disintegrated. And put it all back together. Jaws wired shut 4 months. My jaws wired. I had a steel bolt right through my nose for about a month and a half or 2 months. And somehow it all, they said, never recover, never wrestle again, never ride a motorcycle again, never ski, never do anything. They really didn't expect me to survive, but they said my life as I knew it was over with. I completely was able to come back 100% and prove everything that they had anticipated and expected to happen, and been able to just excel and succeed and be normal, have a life. And they said life as I knew it was over. I could have been in a wheelchair, with no hope of ever doing anything, getting paralyzed and neck down or whatever.
And how do you want to be remembered in the wrestling business?
Well, I think, the way I'm remembered now, people the other day talking about on Facebook how Brutus Beefcake's never been pinned in WrestleMania. It's not a bad. Hulk Hogan's been pinned. Everybody else you could name probably has been pinned in WrestleMania. I've never been pinned in WrestleMania. As far as I'm concerned, WWE, I went out on top. Winning a match in WrestleMania 9, so we actually won the belts, but they took the belts away from us, didn't give us the belts, even though we won the match, won the belts. We were leaving the territory, so they took the belts away and made an excuse, said it was a disqualification or something. Didn't matter, but went out on top. And how much better can you ask for than that?
And then you went on to do the barbershop, which was pretty cool. And for the absolute final question, do you have a message that you want to tell your fans, and particularly your German fans who are big fans of this channel?
Oh, I love Germany. I'm German. I'm German Scottish. So that makes sense. I just want to tell the fans I'm grateful to the McMahon family and that I was given the opportunities that I was given and able to succeed and use the talents that God gave me to become a huge worldwide success. I can go anywhere on this planet and people know me. So that's not a bad thing, and people are nice to me. People don't run up, hey, you're an asshole. People come up, oh my God, it's Brutus the Barber Beefcake, oh my God, and they're excited and and I'm able to reach out to people and change and touch people's lives, millions and millions of people. That's more than I ever dreamed in my wildest imagination that I would ever be able to accomplish. So I think that's pretty cool. I'm trying to get it in the right spot.
Yeah, this is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com, and today we have none other than WWE Hall of Famer Brutus the Barber Beefcake joining us.
Uh-oh.
Still strutting in a cutting, multiple-time champion, one of the all-time greats. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great.
Just forget about it.
For some reason,
Don't worry about it.
I can't see.
Don't
anything.
worry, but you have to see
Okay.
yourself.
Anyway, no,
Oh, we can
going.
see you. We can see
Okay,
you.
well, as long as you can see me, everything's going great. The funny thing is there's been how long has it been since me and you really talked? Or I mean,
It's been a while, actually, hasn't it?
We had a few times out on the road, baby, and I mean, the Great White North in Canada and stuff. It was crazy times, man. In years past, great times.
Yeah, you're a very fun guy to hang out with, and we were definitely had some adventures. But as far as the WWE Hall of Fame, it was kind of a bit long time coming for you. Were you surprised when they finally gave you the call to put you in?
I guess I had basically figured they weren't going to do it, and it's been so long. And then Hulkster called and said they want to do it, and they were going to use me to introduce the thing on Sports Illustrated, a special, some kind of intro. My announcement was going to be real special, which just made me feel good, it was Honky was in there, and we all had a good time. It was, and then that thing with Brett happened. Well, the fan jumped in there, and then Brett and then Davey Boy was whooping on that guy, and then they dragged him out and whooped on him some more. It was.
Yeah, that was the most entertaining Hall of Fame, I think, ever, because this year, I don't know if you saw it, there was only 5 inductees, and it was 3 hours long. It was just dragged out.
I didn't get a chance, man. I was out in California for WrestleCon, so they were keeping me pretty busy.
Oh, I can imagine. Did you see anything of this Rick Steiner controversy at WrestleCon?
I completely missed it, but evidently it really happened like right around the corner, or right before me, right after me. I'm not sure.
That's a shame.
But right before maybe or something. I don't know. I don't really know what happened. I'm not even.
Yeah, there's some people saying it was made up, and other people saying it happened. So I don't know what the truth is. It's hard to believe no one filmed it.
With wrestlers, yeah. Everybody's got 5 phones in their pockets. The girl's got 3 phones. How can nobody have a phone to film that?
There's a fan on here that wants to know if you ever wrestled Matt Bourne or Giant Gonzalez.
No, but I did a movie with Giant Gonzalez, and I did wrestle Matt Bourne in Portland, when one of my early territories, 1979, and that's where Tony Bourne, his father, and Matt were from Portland, and that's where I was a young and up and coming guy. Wrestled Kurt Hennig for his first match. Him and his dad came in, and back in the, in the early days, baby.
Wow, Kurt Hennig's very first match.
Yeah.
What did you think when he passed away? He passed away so suddenly.
It happened in Tampa, right here in my hometown. It was just needless, terrible, beautiful family, a son, a great wife, and just a tremendous family. It was just something that should have never happened. Just shouldn't happen.
Now, as far as the first WrestleMania, you actually wrestled David Sammartino on that card. Are you surprised at what a big spectacle it's become now? 2 nights, big stadiums, or did you know back when that first WrestleMania happened that this was going to be something big eventually?
Anybody that says they knew it is a liar. Nobody had any clue. I mean, oh, we thought this was great and this was going to be great, but nobody had a clue how big. And the whole 2-day thing, okay, I'm not sure I really agree with it. I think if you got something that works and it's great, why change it? You know what I mean? So
I guess just they don't want to turn down the money and they know they can make it even though it's watered down a little bit.
a little.
How was David Sammartino? Because some people have said that he had attitude issues. Was he all right with you?
Oh, he was fine with me. I get along good with Bruno. I work with Bruno after the David thing because David pretty much took off, left, and so I actually worked with Bruno several times, and I had great matches with Bruno. I mean, it could have went anyway. Bruno was an old school, old timer, and he liked me, and so I mean, we had a great match. He put me over like $1 million. I put him over like a monster, super big baby face, man. I flew all over the ring for him, and he put me over in his own hometown of Pittsburgh. I mean, that's called passing the torch. That's called, the younger generation. Here's comes the up and coming talent, and you give them the rub, and tell everybody, yes, this is a superstar coming up. He did that for me, and that's I'll never ever forget it. I mean, that was huge. That was huge.
Yeah, because I don't even think he did that for Honky Tonk Man when Honky Tonk wrestled him.
No, Honky was a little, strange to work with, and
A little wonky.
he wouldn't really mix with Bruno's mentality, his style, and everything. But I understood him, and we clicked in the ring. We had great matches. It was real easy, real.
Now, when you came into WWE, was that around the same time that Hogan came in, or did you come in slightly after him?
Slightly after him. He came in from Minneapolis. I had come through Minneapolis and then through New York, and that's when I wound up going over to Austria and working with Otto Vance. Vince basically sent me over in John Studd's place. They had just started the Hogan run in New York, and John Studd was in a big angle, and it was the very beginning, and they didn't want to have to try to pull him out of a week's worth of main events, so they sent me over to wrestle this guy out of Vance, the Austrian, the mayor of Austria, actually of Graz, and he gave me such a rave review to Vince that I got at my meeting with Vince when I came home and cooked up the name Brutus Beefcake, and I cooked up the outfits and stuff while down in Florida, and then boom, we hit the ground running.
Now, was it Vince's idea for the stripper gimmick? I guess you weren't really a stripper, but I guess it was kind of like that style with the bow tie and the fishnet pants.
Well, yeah, I completely caught them by surprise. I got the clothes from the rock guy that made rock and roll clothes in Florida, and the whole stripper thing. Pat Patterson wanted me to be from San Francisco. They first place, I think, either they introduced me from parts unknown or it was San Francisco, but they wanted me to. I think they wanted me to be the LGBT guy, like kind of or something. But that's not really where I was focused, and I went with the more the male stripper, the Chippendale kind of guy, rub with the bow tie and the boom and bang, and needless to say, it worked fantastic.
Yeah, it did. And one of your initial feuds was with Hulk Hogan, and you guys fought in front of some packed houses. Those matches are on YouTube.
Yeah.
You guys were already friends. Was that feud kind of something that he asked for, or did it just kind of fall into place with you getting over as Brutus?
It just fell into place with me. It was only a natural with me. I got red hot fast, and then they put me with him. It was selling out basically with anybody that he was with. But when they put us together, we were selling out in like a week. When they started selling tickets, and we would sell out in like a couple of days, and we weren't used to that. And the 25, 30,000 seat arenas, everywhere was packed. There was 1,000 people outside trying to scalp tickets, buy tickets, or anything, thinking, there's going to be extra tickets. Everybody showed up. Wrestling was super hot. I was at the right place at the right time, no question about it, and had a arrogantly good-looking Brutus Beefcake, and just rocked it. They got it was fun. It was a blast.
And the pay, I guess, was huge in those days.
I was getting pebbles, pence. I was getting nickels and dimes compared to what some people were getting. Yeah.
Did you guys kayfabe it on the outside, even though that you guys were close friends and you were one of his most trusted confidants at that time? Would you still hide it in the hotels and bars and stuff?
You mean kayfabing?
Yeah.
No. We rode in first class together in the planes. I knew in every town where the gym was. I knew where the best restaurant was. I knew what hotel we were in and where the arena was. So as soon as we hit the limousine at the airport, I just started telling the driver where to go. Okay, do we have enough time? Okay, we're going straight to the gym. We go to the gym, work out. Okay, boom, we go back to the hotel. We shower up real quick. We go, boom, to the arena. We hit the arena, come back to the hotel. Then, it's the airport. That's what we did every day when we were working together. We just traveled together. Okay, vaping at all. Nobody cared.
Right.
Nobody cared.
There was no internet.
Everybody thought we were brothers. They were like, okay, it's entertainment. The two brothers are wrestling. So they thought it was great.
What was the schedule like in those days? Because now they're lucky if they have 1 or 2 house shows a week. But I understand sometimes you do double shots on the weekends and you'd be on the road for weeks at a time.
I talked to CBS a few years ago, and they had called me, and they were doing an interview talking about the first WrestleMania in the beginning there with Vince and WWF. And I went and found a couple of my old ledgers and went through and had wrote down where TVs were. And I mean, maybe I didn't have every night was a town, but there was a town every night. And then a lot of times, depending on what time of year it was, we had matinees on Saturdays and matinees on Sundays. So here it is. You got a TV week. So Monday, you wrestled 4 times. And if you're a feature, I was a feature, I got to be the last match of the night so that people would stay and watch all through the TV. So that's 5 matches. And then the next day was Tuesday. I wrestled 5 matches. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, wrestled 2 matches a day. And then now, okay, so what was that? 10, 18 to 20, 22 times in a week you were just wrestled. And that happened at least every month or every 3 weeks. So we wrestled 500 matches in 1984, 500 matches in 1985, 500 matches in 1986, 87, 88, 89, 90. I didn't get to finish out, but it would have been 500 matches. Greg and I had the belts. We wrestled 100 days in a row without even a day off. We got to actually go through Florida a couple times so we could go by our house and change out some clothes and see your family or whatever you had. and start your car or I don't know, whatever, and then back out onto the road. And we ran insanely hard. And we did do good. Greg and I made great money. I did good money on my own. You know, we had merchandise and stuff like that was pretty decent. But you know, it never doesn't last forever. You know, we had no insurance, we had no retirement, anything like that. So it won't be surprised how much money you can make. There was years, $1 million years after times, and you know, restaurants and homes and condos and vehicles and cars and this and that. And it's, one day there, next day it's gone. You know.
We can't hear you.
Oh,
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
we lost your audio.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I got it now. Got it
Yeah.
now.
Okay. I said, would you have made more in WCW or WWE per year?
Oh no, WWE for sure.
Okay.
A lot more. So, but you know, WCW just paying the bills.
Yeah. Someone wants to know about working with Dan Spivey, who I think replaced Barry Windham when you and Greg were feuding with the U.S. Express.
Yeah, Dan was from Tampa. I knew Dan. Yeah, he was like a mafia guy, mob guy, tough guy, leg breaker. Real, you know, I was surprised when I really realized he was actually a real wrestler. And Dan was just the nicest guy too. You'd never know. But you know what? If you made him mad, you had a mean streak a mile wide. And the guy was tougher than nails. He gave Adrian one hell of a wake-up call, nearly killed him with his bare knuckles, hitting him 3 or 4 times, almost killed him. I never seen anybody so busted from bare knuckle shots. Danny was lethal. he was lethal. But you know, I got along great with him. He's a Florida boy. You know, I love him.
The Undertaker said he was a pimp, so I guess that kind of goes with what you were saying.
He was. He did all kind of stuff. He collected money. He was a leg breaker. He did all kind of stuff like that before the wrestling business. Yeah, well, Barry quitting on Mike there. I mean, you know, that was a total screw job on me and Greg. You know, we work with those guys and put them over a lot. And then when we switched the belts, you know, we're supposed to work with them for at least 6 months. It's all booked. And then within a week, Barry quits. Now we got 6 months of matches. And what are we supposed to do? So Barry boned us big time. Greg and his partner too. And you know, Danny stepped in, but it wasn't the same. You can't substitute like that. And, you know, it wasn't anything on Danny. It just, you know, so then they shot the Bulldogs to us and the Rockers and 2 or 3 tag teams, the Killer Bees. They shot, you know, and we mauled the Killer Bees. And then the Rockers, they were okay. The Rockers were young kids, but they weren't ready for prime time. And the Bulldogs had the look but they still weren't ready for prime time either. We had to work with these guys and teach them how to have a real match that, you know, not just a boom, 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 run around with your head on your tail on fire for 10 or 15 minutes. And then that's it. We had to teach them how to have a beginning, a middle, and an end and tell a story out there and have a match. And after, you know, we had them for 6 months, 8 months, we had the Bulldogs, you know, unbelievable. And we had them doing so good, they wanted to put the belts on in WrestleMania 2. Oh, okay, it's something to do, but you're always better off having the baby faces chase the heels with the belts. The heels can put the baby faces over every single night, but not win the match and not lose the belts. And that way the people come every night and they want to see the good guys beat up the bad guys, and that's what you give them. But we don't lose the belts, and you can go forever. But when you give the belts to the good guys, now the good guys gotta win every night. So after a while, you don't have an opponent. You beat everybody. Who do you wrestle? Who's going to come to see you when they know every time you guys win? You know, it's the psychology of the business.
Yeah, you guys were a strong team for sure. When they broke you up, was that just the office saying, "Okay, let's turn Brutus face and make him the barber," or what led
They
to
didn't
that?
tell me nothing. They didn't tell Greg nothing. Tell anybody. I didn't know about the barber thing until I walked into TV 3 days after WrestleMania. I didn't know anything. You know, I don't know. I think I was being set up to fail, but there you go. With some help, the Hulkster stepped in, gave me some advice. Talked to Vince. Said, "Here's what we're going to do with Beefcake. This barber thing, nobody's ever done it. There's no template for it. There's no way to know what to do. So you have to get creative." So okay, I'm going to cut somebody's hair every single time I wrestle. I'm going to put the guy asleep, and when he's asleep, I'm going to cut his hair. And it was something that the people loved. They went crazy for. Oh, you got me lit up now, honey. Thank you. And yeah, the people, you know, nobody ever had a clue that anything like this could happen. And then I got, you know, pretty creative in the ring, doing stuff and cutting there and putting things on and painting stuff and putting a mirror there, doing all these, and did vignettes and crazy stuff in the barber and then I got those big clippers out. I went out with little scissors, and I went like, Jesus. There's 25,000 people. Those people in the front, they can't. The people in the back, they can't really see me. How are they going to see a pair of scissors? So I got those big hedge clippers and went out, wrapped the handles up red and white, run out the first time with them, and the people went nuts. And I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is the key. The big clippers and cutting the hair." And it was a hell of a baby face gimmick because he's like, I'm more of a heel than the heels are. That's what I'm doing to people. You know?
Yeah, one of the most memorable was when you got Sensational Sherry's hair. How was she to work with?
She was great. I named her Sensational Sherry, Scary Sherry, and it caught on so much. She was just they went wild with it. Yeah, I cut her. What do you call it, honey? A wig, a fall?
Ponytail.
Yeah, she had a big ponytail. I chopped that with the big scissors, and that was in SummerSlam '89, I think.
Yeah, how was Zeus to work with? He was fairly green, but he was over like crazy.
You know, super green, super nice guy. You know, he liked me and Hulk, which is a plus. If you know, if you don't like the guy you're working with, that's not gonna make it easy. But he trusted us. We had him for a day and a half to walk him through some real basic stuff, and we had built-in safeguards to keep him. If he got lost, then he had certain things that he was supposed to do. If he just forgot everything that he was supposed to do, and then he knew one thing and he'd do that, and then we knew we could regroup him, get him back on track. But he didn't need it. He went through 2 pay-per-view matches without one single screw up, one flaw. Most 99% of the guys now on TV, they can't get through their match half the time without screwing up. And they rehearse it and they do this and they do that. It's all written out. They walk. You can't be serious. This guy is an actor, and we took him through 2 pay-per-view matches without a mistake. That's something.
Yeah, he should be in the celebrity wing of the Hall of Fame.
He should be in the Hall of Fame for what he did. Well, they put Andy Kaufman in the Hall of Fame for it. Zeus did more for wrestling than
Drew Carey as well.
Okay, all right. You know what? But God bless them, and I'm glad. I'm glad they're all in the Hall of Fame. Everybody, is in the Hall of Fame.
Somebody that deserves to be into. A fan is asking about Haku. Did you ever see Haku in action?
Yeah, A lot. I know I go way back with all the Samoan families, and Haku is part of that. Part of that generation and part of those guys,
And
and
Noah Kanoa is upcoming in Boca Raton Championship
yeah, and
Wrestling.
one of his relatives, Noah
Noah Kanoa.
Kanoa. Yeah, he works with us in Boca Raton Championship Wrestling. Yeah, me and let's see, me and the big guy had fun in Baltimore in the Safari Club in Baltimore one night, and a guy was messing with me at our table, and Haku grabbed him by his head and came across the table and bit the end of his nose off and spit it on him. And the bar erupted into a huge melee fight. And then we snuck out the side door, and then I had to help him surrender to the police. But they wound up dropping the charges. They didn't charge him with anything. He didn't get in trouble. And I helped them, get through that. And it was like I had made a friend. I had made a friend for life. He says, if anybody ever messes with you, Beefcake, I'll tear their head off. I said, brother, I appreciate that.
Now, there's a clip that's famous on YouTube now of you doing like an interference, and I think it was an earthquake match under a new gimmick. Do you recall what that was in WWE? I think it was around the time you returned from your parasailing accident. They had you.
A guy wearing fur, or
Yeah.
was it? Yeah. That was just something I was trying to make the adjustment of deciding how much I could do in the ring. What was I willing to risk? The doctors told me I was absolutely out of my mind. I cannot ever wrestle. It's too risky. You're going to die. Period. End of the story. So that's a pretty big decision to make. What do I want to do? How far do I want to push this? So I had a few matches, and then after that, I decided I wanted to take a little more time. I felt I wanted to heal a little bit more, and then that's when we had the next thing I did in Gogi. We did that Monday Night Raw, and then that led into WrestleMania 9.
And you had a bunch of gimmicks in WCW. Did you have a favorite of all of the gimmicks? I know you couldn't use the Brutus the Barber one there, so they tried a lot of different ones.
Well, a couple of them were mine, and most of them weren't really theirs. There was the Butcher, just kind of came to fruition by the clothes I had. We just started calling me the Butcher, and then there was the Booty Man. The Zodiac was a character I played in one of Hogan's movies. There was a bunch of wrestlers. He was doing a scene where he was having a nightmare. It was a nightmare sequence, and I created
Mr.
this
Nanny.
Zodiac.
Mr. Nanny, right?
Yeah, and I created this Zodiac character, and they were doing the Dungeon of Doom in WCW. They said, man, we want that Zodiac guy in the Dungeon of Doom. So next thing you know, I'm riding into the Halloween Havoc in Detroit at the Joe Louis Arena on the back of Bigfoot with Big Paul Wright, the giant, on the back of Bigfoot as the Zodiac. And you know what? It was paying the bills. It didn't matter. Basically, after that, they said they couldn't repackage me anymore. So I went home and dieted real heavy for like 8 weeks. And was a real strict regimen, and with my training, and my body fat went down to 5%. I had my 30-inch waist, 20-inch arms. I was shredded. I had an 8-pack. Nobody even recognized me. I grew my hair long. I grew this beard out. Nobody recognized me at all. We walked into CNN Tower, me and Hogan. And it was when they were doing the NWO stuff, was running crazy. And he walks me in there. I had my vest on, my chaps. I was all oiled up and jacked. And he said, I want to introduce you to my new disciple. And they were all giddy and laughing, going, oh my God, look at this. Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. Oh my God. Then he goes, oh yeah, by the way, that's Brutus Beefcake. Half of them ran out of the room. So there were a bunch of them didn't like me. Bischoff and his crew, they didn't like me. So they all took off. But the rest of the people were just sitting there laughing. They couldn't believe it. They go, this is unbelievable.
Yeah,
Here
it
we
was an
go.
amazing transformation. So Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, you want to tell us about this commissioner job you're doing before we wrap it up here?
Well, it's a new outfit. There's a lot of young, up and coming wrestlers, a lot of NXT guys. We got a 7-foot
Jack Talos.
Talos. He's like 7 foot tall giant. About Bull. What's Bull's last name? I'm so bad on names. We got a really great crew of guys. Gangrel works with us all the time. Jimmy Hart's been with us already. He's coming back. Jake Roberts has come in. Jim Duggan's come in. It's a guys, real class act organization, top notch. Real class act deal for
Matt Tavern
for wrestling. Neil the heel is our announcer. They are they're doing great. It's amazing that if somebody wants to do it, they can get a business going. If you can find some good people, and there's plenty of good people around. Everybody still trying to make a living out there. That the COVID epidemic put us all out of work for 2 years. Yeah, so I'm the commissioner. I make sure everything is just the way I want it.
And where can the fans follow you if they want to look you up?
Well, Boca Raton Championship Wrestling.com.
Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, yeah.
.com, Brutus Beefcake, BrutusBeefcake.com. But the website for Boca Raton Championship Wrestling, it's easy to find, and it's endless. There's all kind of links on there. They show about names and of all the players involved, and it's great. I don't have to fly. I can hop in my car and drive over there and stay a day or two. And
don't forget over the top, give kids the world.
Go to the beach. Yeah, I'm doing. We do some charity events with the organization Give Kids the World. Me and the wife are gonna rappel down a hotel in a big building in Orlando here in about a week or two.
All right. Well, I want to see that. That sounds like something that I really want to see.
Yeah.
Can you bring your wife on so we can see her for a sec before you go?
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
Oh, you might give you
all
up.
right, all right.
Well,
all
you
right.
saw part of her.
All right.
Yeah,
all
we
right.
saw part. Okay.
Yeah.
There's your wife.
That's there she is.
Here I am.
Okay. Is she on camera with you in that in Boca Raton Championship Wrestling?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I'll be
No,
repelling.
if you go pull up her footage on YouTube, you'll see her.
Okay.
You can't mistake her, brother.
I'm the
She's
delish.
gorgeous. She's gorgeous. The commish and the delish.
There you go. You're doing very well for yourself. I'll let you.
You know what? Good things come to good people. It's about karma, man. You try to treat people the way you want to be treated, treat people well, and hopefully, give and you get back. We always try to give, and you know what? It makes a difference.
Don't forget about Goldie right there.
My power dog. That's Go Power Doggy up there, like on the back.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
she's feisty.
Oh, 10 pounds of her.
This 5 pounds. This
6
power
pounds of
dog.
her. I don't know. She's little, but
Yeah, I got a little one too here.
Uh-oh.
I got a 6-pounder too, but she's been quiet throughout this.
we got 3.
Oh, 3?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you got a zoo going on.
This is Power Doggy. Oh, we got a crazy. All 3 of them sleep with us at night. It's a real circus.
Yeah, take baby.
And then
Take
that's
babies.
Go. This is Baby. She's a little bigger for a long-haired Chihuahua, but she cries, and you think it's a human. Like we were afraid to leave her in the hotel because if she starts crying for us, somebody's gonna bang the door down, thinking we left the baby crying in the room. It's
Yeah, I
Cry
understand
Baby.
what
That's her name.
like.
Is Cry Baby.
Well, I appreciate you coming on with us. We'll definitely have to have you on again, and I'll let you close this off with whatever you want to tell the fans.
I just wanted to thank the fans. I mean, a while back I had a knee replacement, and the fans raised money to help my knee get replaced, and it's doing better. I'm doing better. Diet and lost 25 pounds. I'm trying to get more weight off. It's not easy getting old. I did 42 years in our business, and so the wear and tear is bad. But I'm feeling great. I got the best wife. I got best friends and people that I'm living with and working with, and life, is great. God loves me, and I love him back.
So I'm going to be going live now. This
Okay.
is Hannibal here from thehannibaltv.com with none other than WWE Hall of Famer, the man who was in the first WrestleMania, tons of WrestleManias. He main evented Starrcade for WCW. He was recently featured on Dark Side of the Ring. Brutus the Barber Beefcake, how are you doing today, sir?
I am doing so good. It's insane. I mean, I am so doing happy, well, blessed. My life, things are going great. My wife, she's tremendous. I mean, it's better than I could have ever imagined it would be a few years back. It was really looking bleak, and things really turned around.
Speaking of looking bleak, before we went on, you just reminded me of a time in Calgary when I tried to do a show there and the ring truck broke down and we had like 700 people in the crowd and they ended up just getting your autograph because the ring
Right.
didn't show up. There was no show. Bad night for me,
Oh.
but at least the fans got to see you.
Hey, we had fun with the fans. We did the best we could. Sometimes that's what you got to do in our business. Can't always go the way you want it. But I do remember you paid me for being there, which probably half the guys, the promoters in this country or more, would have balked, and not would, and you were right up the front. I was a long ways from home too. So, but I mean, yeah, that just goes to show you're a good man.
Appreciate it. And you are too. I don't know why people pick on you sometimes. Why do you think that is? Just jealousy of your success?
God, I don't want to hit that too hard, but you watched The Dark Side, obviously, right?
Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah. I mean, there's good to there. There was, some things I don't know how they were wrong, but mostly it was all good. And the people talk about Brutus and his gimmicks. He had so many gimmicks. There's so many. Wow, the gimmicks. Too many names. Too many gimmicks. And I tried to explain to him. Vince McMahon trademarked my name in 1990 before anybody knew about things, before that accident and all that. And when that accident changed my whole life. And so it kind of really limited me with WWE, where I was going to go. And so Hulk and I moved on to making movies and TV shows and going to work for WCW. And then, so I had to create some personalities. But almost every single one of those personalities wound up being in main event pay-per-view matches. Okay. So how can half these guys have never been in a main event pay-per-view match in their life? Make fun of me saying, "Oh, Brutus is really gimmick and this again." Hey, I just got called upon, step into a role, like bam, do something. Boom, throw me on and I could be a pay-per-view and help draw money to their cause and everything. How can that be a bad thing? Or why would it show that I am not a good wrestler? It would show that I am an exceptional wrestler because I can change boats mid while we're going 80 miles an hour. I jump to the other boat and keep going.
Yeah, I heard that. I think it was Starrcade 94 when you were the Butcher taking on Hogan. That actually had a bigger crowd in Nashville than Flair against Steamboat that everyone talks about.
I
But
love
people
that,
will never
man.
give you your due on that. It had a good pay-per-view buy rate as well.
I only say that I thank God every single day. I pray so much. He has blessed me so much. I have just been, able to do things. And sometimes I guess, they're I tell my wife all the time, hey, you're not bad. These people that talk about you they're only jealous. And I mean,
Tell us what I call Ric Flair. My nickname.
Yeah, I noticed
this is,
Knobs took a shot at your acting. Is that
yeah.
because
Oh yeah.
maybe he wasn't in as many movies as you?
That's I doubled Hulk and did stunts in probably eight movies and 9, 10 movies and television series that went 22 episodes. And it only got dropped because the greedy production people that did Baywatch, over there on the California beach for years and years, and they stole so much money. It's mind blowing. And they came to Florida and they thought they could get away with the whole thing. And Rice Entertainment, who was sponsoring the thing and putting up all the money, they went back and looked at the books and they go, "Oh, Jesus, you got there's 20 people that are on the books as your family." What? And the FedEx and the FedEx bill was $250,000. I mean, money just disappeared everywhere. So at the end, after the show, the people looked at the thing. They go, "Hey, it was a great show, and we love it, but we just can't put up the money again and see it all go out the window."
Yeah, and it was a pretty good show. And I know you were in Mr. Nanny for a little bit. And weren't
Stand
you
with
one of the
muscles, Ultimate Weapon, two
Ultimate
Navy
Weapon? You had a
SEALs.
real role too, right? You
Yeah,
had a
they
pretty
have,
big role in Ultimate Weapon.
and I spoke and everything. But the Navy SEAL, the two Navy SEAL movies we did for TNT with Carl Weathers and Marty Cove and Marty Cove. Sorry, from the the Karate Boy, Karate Kid movies. Billy Drago from The Untouchables and done a million movies. All kind of all kind of people. Shannon Tweed was in them. A couple of our episodes in those two movies, and what an unbelievable person. Really, I was just so lucky to be able to hang out and meet her, and to be with the head guy from Kiss. What's his name?
Gene Simmons.
Gene Simmons. To be with him, and she didn't drink, she didn't smoke, she was like saint-like. Me and Hulk tried everything to get her, to corrupt her, to have a beer with us on the set after these 20-hour days and stuff. We're all like, oh, ooh. And she was just beautiful and looking good and just happy and it's just so pure. It was like, wow, this is so weird because this woman to be with Gene Simmons, and I met once or twice, but he is just cuckoo. He's crazy, and if he hadn't done everything in the world twice, I don't know who has. And for her to be, make a family with him, and probably be the only woman that could ever rein in Gene Simmons, she did it. It's unbelievable.
Definitely. Someone's bringing up here, you did Hogan's stunts in Suburban Commando. Is that true?
Absolutely. That's, with Chris Lloyd, Shelley Duvall, Jack Elam, one of the old guys sitting in the Jeep with talking, was from all the old Westerns and John Wayne movies and stuff. I sat for hours talking to him about the old John Wayne movies because I'm a huge John Wayne fan. And Chris Lloyd, I love that guy. He's just crazy. And I've been fortunate enough to do a lot of Comic Cons. I did Australia. I think I did New Zealand. He was there. And he and I were sitting in the green room talking and just going through old times and talking. and just some of the actors I've been fortunate enough to work with and be around, and just always trying to learn and absorb, some of the greatness of these people. It's an amazing thing. It's an amazing thing to be around them.
One thing I can confirm that's true with you is that you don't have a criminal record because you've come to Canada all the time. I think you've been at least 10 times for me over the years. So I can confirm for the story that they tried to say about you on the subway on Dark Side of the Ring,
Oh,
that if you had been caught with something, wouldn't you have a criminal record?
well, absolutely. And here's the well, this is the simplest thing to think about. Okay, the the place where I was, this toll booth, token booth where I was sitting, was called Downtown Crossing, and a bunch of the lines all run into that, and everything. That was shut down for hours. That alone must have cost $500,000, $1 million being shut down. And you think if these Boston police found cocaine in my booth, they wouldn't have tried to sue me and put that bill on me, going, you just caught, doing drugs in the booth. I mean, it sounded bad, but I still use those same aspirin BC powders today because they work. There's several different pain relievers that you can use in that powdered form. And it's not such a stretch that I had one in my bag and it fell on the floor, and the girl picked it up and it went poof. And she's wearing a black, and this real fine dust like thing went on her. First thing she started yelling was, anthrax, it's anthrax. I mean, I don't know who would have ever thought of that. It was back in that time, I guess, but that says it all. The Boston police, they never filed anything on me, and they sure would if they could have. That's the way it was back then.
And they don't even let Americans with DUIs into Canada. So
I know.
you definitely didn't have any charges there. Somebody wants to know about working for Jake Roberts in the UK. Do you have any memories of that?
I love Jake. Yeah. Well, I know Jake was with a girl for a while that was from there. I know she was kind of sponsoring him, whatever. And then me, Doug, and Honky contacted us about going over and doing a show. So we all did. And it was like, everybody makes their own deal and everything. But so most of the time I get paid every night. That's the old school way. They used to do it in the 70s and the 60s. Every night you got your payday, your payoff. Didn't change till later. So it's like third day into the deal, and we're at a pretty good, a beautiful arena, and there's like almost maybe 100 or 200 people there. Definitely not paying the rent and paying all the guys we got. And I went to Honky. I said, "Well, did you get paid?" And he goes, no. I said, I went to Doug, and I was like, "Hey, brother, did you get paid? Have you been paid?" No. I said, okay, you guys can do whatever you want on this, but as far as I'm concerned, I need to get paid, and then I'll wrestle tonight. No problem. Happy as a clam. And when I went and told Jake that, he got upset and and everything. But then guess what? He paid all of us that night and stuff. Then, we finished out the tour. Everything was great. I went back to the States. And then when I got home, there was something on the internet about me trashing a hotel room in, God, I think that's London, somewhere in the suburbs or whatever around London, that I trashed the hotel rooms. And before I left, because I was mad or something, I was like, okay, I've only been in 5,000 hotel rooms for 40 years in the business. and I've never trashed a hotel room ever. So why would I do it when I'm over there with Jake? I don't know. They just made it up because Jake was mad at me, and he said, but all that, it's just the times were a lot different then.
What do you think about Jake getting his AEW contract extended, even though they barely use him? It seems like a pretty good deal some guys have over there.
Oh man, hey, I love it. That's fantastic. I'm super happy for Jake. Chris Jericho's a good friend, and my grandsons love the AEW. They love some of the guys there. Chris was fantastic and did like birthday shout outs for my grandsons and stuff. He is this amazing guy. And, anybody gets a deal and can keep a deal. Amazing. I wish I had one, but we're doing okay.
Yeah, well, maybe we'll see in there one day because they do bring in the legends here and there. Do you think with Vince McMahon recently selling about 2 billion total worth of stock that there's any chance he's going to jump back in the wrestling business? Apparently his no compete ends in January 2025.
Oh, wow. I was never aware of that. I don't know. This is getting old. And how much money do you need? Really? He's done it all, been there, done it all, and then the latest stuff that's hit the newsreels and stuff about him is not good. So if I was him, I think I'd just stretch out on the beach in a nice chair under the sun, sipping a pina colada, and go to Trader Vic's on the weekend and have hamburger. I don't, what else? What else does he need to do?
I'm going to guess you always had a good relationship with him over the years.
Mostly so, yeah. Yeah. Never spent a lot of time with him, but he was in Florida a few times and then he did make a couple of stops down on Reddington Beach in Hulk's townhouse down there right on the beach. We pull the Donzi Z33, 33-foot twin engine boat, anchor it right off the beach, nice pool down there, everything on, and Vince and Linda both, and we hung out, barbecued and did our thing down there and on the beach and had a great time.
Do you see him going to court with this woman now that she's already brought it all out? He really doesn't have anything to lose by taking it all the way, or do you think he's going to settle it again?
You know what? I haven't been following that too close. I don't have a clue. I really don't. I don't know what. I know it's not. Going to denying it to the end. I think maybe that'd be good, because if it's what I think you're talking about, it's so degrading and demoralizing and subhuman behavior that to admit to it would be pretty serious. I don't know how you come back from that.
Did you actually leave WWE to go to WCW, or was there a time in between there where you were a free agent?
Definitely like a free agent there. After WrestleMania 9, while we were actually after we just come out of the ring, probably within 20 minutes, 30 minutes, we went over to another stage and filmed a interview for the Tokyo Dome. And he and I both went over and wrestled the Tokyo Dome, whatever it was, 75,000 or something. And I picked up a better payday for an 8-minute match with Masa Saito. Saito, the same one that was in with Kim Patera and went to jail and all that, was the booker for New Japan. And worked with him, did like 8 minutes, beat him and right in the middle of the ring, and made a better payday than I did for WrestleMania. One, I don't know if we were considered a main event. I assume we were. We were tag world tag team match. I thought we actually won that match, but then they kind of flip flop switched around at the end there, and realizing what they had done, and said, "Oh no, we can't give those two the belts because they're leaving." You know, going away. We were going to film Thunder in Paradise, actually, the movie first that we filmed in St. Pete Beach and all around and the surrounding islands and stuff. And then we started filming Thunder in Paradise, the television series at Disney. And then WCW was doing all their filming at Universal Studios, I guess back then. So it was only natural with WCW people everywhere, all around us, surround us in Orlando, while we're down there at the Grand Floridian, you know, and Terry's bringing in, you know, Terry Funk, and we had Hercules, we had this, we had, you know, all the Sting. The very first episode that they sold the show to Disney with had me doubling Hulk on a wave runner on a small little river there in Kissimmee, flying down this river in a wave runner and roll up to a airboat with supposedly Sting driving, but they had a guy underneath it, had it set up, and without rehearsal, without ever even trying it before, I come flying up from doing like 40 miles an hour to probably 25, 30 next to the airboat, step off, reach up, grab a Sting, and start a big fight scene on the front of this moving airboat. And then boom, 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 go off into the water near the shore. And then boom, you got Hulk and the real Sting pop up. I had me in the doubles. And the Disney watched this thing and they were like, "Oh my God, this is great. We love this. We had no idea that Hulk could do this kind of stuff. Oh my God." And they went, "Well, he didn't." They were like, what do you mean?" They're like, "That wasn't Hulk. That's his double." And they were like, going, "What? Can we watch that again?" And they watched it again and they were like, that's a great double for Hulk. When these guys they produce TV, they don't even know that it wasn't the real guy. That's something to be proud of there, buddy. Because I've been around the business a long time. I know I'm in the Screen Actors Guild. I'm in AFTRA, the American Federation for the television actors thing, and have been since 1984. Whenever we did the first commercial for the Hasbro wrestling figures, the little wrestling guy with me in the pink tights going, and
did you get a good payday for that, by the way? We've heard everyone got different amounts.
Yeah, I got I wouldn't consider it a great payday, but it was something. Back in the early 80s, I was scratching and scraping because I'd been, 7 years running around the country in every territory, barely making a living. Thank God my family, my mom and dad helped subsidize me a few times when I was really needed it, and it kept me going. And then once the opportunity came in 83 there to go to events and with this with the Brutus Beefcake, and I came up with the outfits and stuff, and they came up with the name, and boom, and then get that opportunity to go out on TV. They went crazy. People went wild. And then I guess they scratched their head and they said, "Yeah, I think this is really going to work really good." And then they ran with it.
WrestleMania 1, you against David Sammartino. Any memories of that? Looking at WrestleMania 40 now, did you ever think it would go this long?
Never. Had no idea it was going to be like going to 40. I thought I would have probably done a few more than I did, but that accident put a damper on things for a couple of years there. But I had actually got a chance to come back to WrestleMania 9, pretty much go out at WrestleMania on top, getting our hands raised and having, God knows how many people were at a big outdoor show at Caesar's Palace, whatever, and going crazy and stuff. And if it's going to be your last WWE match, that's a way to do it.
Yeah, that's the way to go out. There's a fan on here that wants to know what your favorite WWE match was.
Oh, probably me and Perfect in the WrestleMania 6. WrestleMania match number 6 was, where we had 72 plus thousand in Toronto at the indoor at the Dome, and
Yeah, there's been some people saying, why was it you and not Hogan to end Mr. Perfect's streak? Because he was feuding with Hogan at the time. Do you know whose call that was?
I'm not sure whose call it was, but see, the thing was, I was going to get the Intercontinental belt. They weren't going to put an Intercontinental belt on him, so why waste it? If they're giving me the Intercontinental belt, boom, that was going to happen. And so we did the match. Who was to know that Warrior's going to come along and on SummerSlam, what was like 80, 88 or whatever, when I was going to supposedly take the belt, Warrior decides that he's going to quit if he doesn't get a belt. So
I think it may have been the accident that screwed you after Perfect, because wasn't it WrestleMania 7 that you missed due to the accident?
Right, but
yeah,
Warrior,
you were also going to get the belt then.
Oh well, no, I was going to get the belt in August of 1990 with that, or August or September, whatever it was, for the SummerSlam, and then but the accident happened on July 4th, so that took that out, and I mean it changed the course of my life, but I'm happy to be here, still be alive. I shouldn't be alive, probably, the way things turned out. I'm awful happy. The doc, he was on the dark side. My doctor, Dr. Matuz Habal, from Armenia, a genius, a man who was years and years and years ahead of his time, and he saved and helped countless children who would have never lived. And his skills and with in the operating room were amazing. Or he was so advanced, and the reason and why he ever decided that he's going to help me, I have no. It's just that God intervened. It was an intervention there. He didn't operate on adults. He only operated on kids. And how they were able to wrangle this guy off the golf course into the hospital to see me, hopefully before I died, because I was in and out there, bouncing in and out. I was up by the pearly gates there, checking it out, and they yanked me back. And that doctor just said, "We're going to operate on this kid." And all the doctors looked at him and said, "You're going to what?" The guy, he's not going to live 12 more hours. What do you think you're going to operate on? This guy's going to die. He's dead. He's dying. As we speak, he's dying. So, and the doctor says, "No, we are going to do this thing. We're going to redo his face," and called up all these doctors and all this equipment. And they had to bring in 18 wheelers into the parking lot because the hospital had no facilities for trauma, and hundreds of thousands of dollars. The bill on this thing was like $750,000, $1 million really, to actually redo my face. And then the doctor knew that I was out of business, and I didn't really have insurance, so he canceled all the other doctors' pay. Said, This was on me. And then so the doctor's bill was like almost nothing. He did it, and I agreed to do some stuff for him, which I did, and go to speak to parents of some of the children and people that come from all over the world. Some of the third world countries, all the third world countries that have no way to help kids born with cleft palates, with their teeth, half a mouth, their nose over here, one eyeball up here, one eye. This guy was so good; he could transform through a series of operations, transform these kids into a person that could have a life and grow up, and it was the most amazing thing. I had no idea there was anybody out there that could do the things that this guy did, and what's the luck of how do you call it, luck, that the accident occurred 30 miles from where his office, 20 miles from his office. His office could have been in Kathmandu, for all in Budapest, in London, in Ireland. It could have been anywhere in the world, and I'd be dead. And it was in Tampa, Florida. And the accident happened just north of Tampa in a little city called Lutz, Florida.
God was on your side. Someone's asking, do you have any permanent side effects from that? Does anything still bother you?
I get some headaches. I got some issues from my neck now. My neck actually kind of fused itself solid. It's probably some of the result of trauma from that event, but just wrestling 42 years. I mean, so I have limited motion. It's an inoperable thing, because I went to everybody trying to see if something they could do, because I can't. That's size I can look up. I can't lift my chin up any farther than that, or turn much farther than that. But it's a hell of a lot better than being dead. Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Someone brings up would have been Piper's birthday today. Do you have any memories of Roddy Piper?
Oh, absolutely, man. I got all my inspiration to do barbershops after Roddy. We were great friends. I did a podcast. If you ever want to find something, you will laugh your cojones off. It's me and Snuka and Piper. It was one of the last podcasts that he did when he was still, before his, he died of cancer before he died. And Snuka had definitely never done a podcast with Roddy, nor had I. We were in Orlando, Florida, at an event that day, and so we went to Roddy's room that night for a few hours and did the podcast. Man, woo! There was some stuff flying around that room, some serious questions asked and answered, and I know Jimmy my whole life. I love him, man. It's heartbreaking that he's gone too, and Rocky Johnson, Dwayne's father, and just we've lost so many. It's just it's tough. I am just so happy to be here. I mean it.
I heard recently, this may have been before you got to WWE, but there was some Middle East tours in the early 80s that not a lot of people know about. Were you a part of any of those Middle East tours? Because I heard that Jimmy Snuka kind of went a little off the wall on one of those, but it may have been before you joined the company.
I think it was before I joined. There was definitely some Middle East independent stuff that came down the pike, and I actually had a visa to go to one of them, and then there was just too much going on over there. I opted out. They weren't going to change my life for the money they were paying me, and it just wasn't worth the aggravation of maybe being kidnapped or whatever.
Yeah, involved in a bombing or something. Someone wants to know, do you still talk to Greg Valentine often?
Greg's out in Vegas. I haven't talked to him in a while. I talk to him when I see him at shows and things like that. And you know, I got a soft spot in my heart for Greg and blah blah blah. But I do want to clear up one kind of thing that Greg fairly recently, was on a podcast, and he called my wife a "see you next Tuesday." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think I've seen this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. Probably a lot of people didn't, but that's no excuse. I know his wife. We've had some round and round stuff. His wife has issues. Her Missy tried to be nice to her so many times it's ridiculous, and she went off the rails and went cuckoo. And then I guess to pacify her, Greg went off the rails and went cuckoo on this podcast. But I mean, I wish I had it. Missy has the video and the audio of some where she's going, Greg, did you call me but she didn't use the see you next Tuesday thing. Did you call me? And then Greg's like, well, yeah. And she goes, really? Am I, and it's the funniest thing you ever saw. He's trying to not trying to deny it, but then doesn't even want to own up to it, and he's like realizing not a good thing, not a good move,
He's a good guy in some ways, in my experience, but he's not trustworthy in others. But he definitely has a good side to him.
He has a great side to him, no question about that. We went through a lot together. I learned a lot being on the road with him in the New York and Jersey area. He helped to teach me those roads up there, brother. And I'm telling you, just surviving, if you can survive driving in New York and New Jersey and Pennsylvania for 10, 12, 15 years, then you've survived something, because that's like a demilitarized zone up there. It's crazy.
Yeah, that turnpike is brutal. Someone wants to know about Ron Bass, one of your most famous feuds.
Ron Bass. Well, when Hulk and I went to Memphis in 78, I guess early 78, when Jerry Lawler was there for Jerry Jarrett, that's what they started calling him, the Hulk. Jerry the Hulk. They did this video, and we just come off the beach. He was like 320, and I was probably about 250. I mean, and they Ron Bass, and he had a partner. They was a tag team with him and Pete Austin. We called him Pete Austin from Boston, and him and Ron Bass were together. And we actually had one of the matches I had in Memphis on TV was with Ron Bass was one of the guys. It was like a tag match, and I got gigged. And Bass gigged me, and he hit a vein. He hit a vein in my head, and blood was squirting out almost. I mean, they had to X out the TV screen, and the blood. There was so much blood in the ring that it's like the people that had to wrestle after me, they were like they could hardly deal with it. The smell was horrible. The ring was. They had to wind up getting a whole new ring cover because so much blood. I almost had to stay the night in the hospital. We wound up finally butterflying it. There was a guy there that helped. He spent a couple hours just trying to get the cut closed up and get it to stop bleeding and everything. And, but that was in our first territory. So that was pretty amazing.
That was before the days where there's doctors in the back, so you get stitched up as soon as you get through the curtain.
Yeah. Hey, is there any chance you can give me like a minute or two here to
Yeah.
take a quick little off-screen break? That would be great.
No, go ahead. I'll cut you off here. All right, fans, there'll be time for a few more questions. Once he gets back, Very good interview so far. He cleared up a few things about dark side of the ring and something I wasn't aware of that with Greg Valentine just there. Um, yeah, so he'll be back in a couple minutes. Apparently, Jack Kilby did an interview with Buff Bagwell last night, who is another guy that had a dark side of the ring earlier this year. So, yeah, we'll see what happens when he gets back. Brother Brutus was one of his names, yes. What made him quit WWE for WCW? He was a free agent doing Thunder in Paradise at the time. Paul Stanley is the lead guy for Kiss. Oh, he's back. There he is. There's a fan question on here that he wants to know about your disciple gimmick when you joined the NWO in 1998.
Like, what kind of wants to know how that happened? I assume, like,
Yeah, because you totally had. I mean, they went over it a bit in Dark Side of the Ring. You disappeared for a while. You came back leaner than you've ever looked, and your hair was different.
yeah,
Not a lot of people knew it was you right away.
well, they were in a position. WCW was bitching about, we need more talent. We need more talent. Hulk says, okay, well, you got. We still couldn't use at that time. We still couldn't use Brutus Beefcake. It was still tied up in court. But so you got Brutus Beefcake here. Well, you've been so many. Eric Bischoff says, hey, we've been all these guys. We just can't repackage you anymore. He said, well, you got a really good worker. Been a former world champion. You can't use them. And their Bischoff was determined. Absolutely not. We just can't do anything more.
Why does he hate you so much?
I don't know. You talk about the J word, man. He wanted to hang around Hulk. There was a time him and Jason Hervey, his butt brother, his partner, and Hulk would not hang out with him because me and him were running wild all over everywhere. And it's just one of those things. And he was just like determined. And then so I went back to Florida, like you said, dropped, boom, changed, grew the beard out. I was down to like 5-6% body fat. I went from 255 down to 220, 215, 220. I was wearing went down to a 30-inch waist, still had 21-inch arms. And I got the leathers and got the stuff, and then Hulk saw, he was like, oh my God, they're not even going to believe this. So he made an appointment. We went down to CNN Center in Atlanta. I had my gear on, up the elevators and CNN people were giving us the looks. Go into the office with all Bischoff's people, and I think Kevin Sullivan was there. There was a bunch of people in the room. And Hulk marches me in there, and everybody's like, oh my God, who is this guy? And Hulk says, this is my new disciple. And everybody's looking at me, and they're going, wow, man, this guy looks great. Can he work? And then he says, oh, yeah, I guess I don't need to introduce you to Brutus Beefcake. And the people's faces hit the floor. Their mouths hung open. They couldn't believe it because nobody knew it was me. Nobody. And half the people ran out of the room. They were so embarrassed. And so, okay, he got me a deal. I had a paycheck. And that was the whole, the whole story. You know, to get 1 million people here, you're paying. What, you know, give Brutus a payday too, for crying out loud. You know, he deserves it as much as all these other people. And besides that, he can actually wrestle. And you know, so but then it wouldn't let me do anything. The disciple walked out and carried the belt. I did. There was in some of the house shows I went out. I had my I think called it the apocalypse. It's kind of similar. It was actually what I was doing, and then Diamond Dallas Page started copying me, and then called it the Diamond Cutter. So he kind of really stole my finish because he had all the airtime and I wasn't on, so it wasn't much. You know, I just kept doing what I was doing. I'd go out there and give the apocalypse to people, and you know, in some of the towns and whatever, a couple of the towns, but you know, I was just happy to be able to get a payday and, you know, support my family. You know, that's what we're all doing here, right?
Definitely. Did you ever wrestle Andre the Giant? Someone's asking.
Oh yeah, absolutely, but not in a single. Andre only worked a couple of single matches that I know of. I know probably Big John Studd was one of them. Hulk was one of them. But you know, he always was. He did tag matches. He'd do a match with 2 or 3 different opponents. Sometimes handicap match, I guess they call that. So mostly, I did a lot of tag matches and battle royals. You know, Andre would, you know, hit the country back when we had territories everywhere, and he came into Oregon and did a battle royal for Don Owen out there in Olympia, in Washington, at a big show out there. I know he came. He came into Mobile, Alabama, or wherever we were. I think Harley Race was there. We had good talent stuff all the time. And so, I mean, I met Andre in '78 when I first went to New York, and lucky for me, he liked me. You know, a lot of guys he didn't really like. And so, I mean, he kind of let you know and stuff. So I always had a good relationship with him. I was in the ring a lot of times with him. I've seen what he did to Jake after Jake put that snake on him, and he's deathly scared of the snakes. And Jake put the snake on him on purpose. You know, I saw Andre do some things to Jake that I don't know how I even lived through it. So I'm standing on Jake. That guy weighed 600 pounds. Standing on Jake, holding on the ropes, standing there on Jake. I thought he would just flatten him. He just squished the guts right out of him. And then Jake got his hair always wet and long and stringy, and Andre would step when Jake was down. He'd step on his hair and then grab him by the head, and then slowly just pull him up and just rip the hair right out of his head. And I'll be watching this, and I'm like, Jake, I guess you shouldn't have put that snake on Andre. I mean, it would have been fine if you didn't have to wrestle him, but not a good idea to piss a giant off. Not a good idea.
Is it true that at one point he had like a bowel movement on Bad News Brown or something, or is that an old wives' tale that there was a rumor that he was wrestling Bad News or something, and he sat on him and he had diarrhea or something?
You know what? I can neither confirm or deny that, but I can say that I think I was on that tour. I don't think I've witnessed that, but I did witness Bad News calling Andre out of the bus one day, and around the time you're talking about, and Andre didn't come out. So I don't know if they worked it out ahead of time, whatever happened, but not like Andre's scared of anybody. But Bad News was pretty much bad news. That guy he was a world champion judo expert his whole life. So he could, you know, there's no end to what he could do. And a lot of guys, if you knew the guy, I knew him, you know, he didn't mess around. But he was pissed about something. And I mean, really pissed, to enough to call out the Giant. The Giant just said, you know, okay, well, we're not going to do this today. Didn't leave the bus, you know, and I guess they wound up working it out. But I wouldn't surprise me if that actually did happen, but I didn't see with my own eyes.
One thing I noticed about going out with you in the past, you never really get the tough guy reputation, but like if someone was rude to you in a bar or something, you would always stand up for yourself. And I'm sure when you were with Hogan, there was probably some moments where you had to protect him over the years. Did
A
anything
lot
ever
more than a
happen like
moment.
that?
There's a
Yeah.
lot of moments, man. So many you wouldn't believe it, and that's something else, you know, that nobody knows about. I watched his ass. I covered him from this way to that way so many times. Got him. There were situations in bars that could have got so ugly and would have been, and I was always focused and watching and I knew everything. My wife goes crazy. She goes, "What are you looking at? What are you looking at?" I goes, I'm just looking. That's what I do. I watch everything. I see everything. And I'd get us out of the bar. I'd get us out of the way. I'd get security. I'd have people already, boom. So that we never, not even once, really had a serious issue. No big bar fights, no brawls in bars and everything, because I was so far ahead of it that I had the security dragging people out the back door, throwing a beating on them. And so nothing would ever happen like that, because nothing ever good comes out of the bar fights and that kind of stuff. And
No, and you wouldn't even see the top guys at bars these days.
oh, geez, you know, I mean, if there would have be the social media that's going like it was, you know, I mean, like we have now, you know, back in the 80s, oh, it would have been the same. I mean, we were rock stars. We're on MTV. We're on VH1. We're all plastered all over everything. And everywhere we went, people, they loved us. And it was the most fun time of my life. I'll never forget it. I'll never, ever say, you know, thank you, Vince. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to get on TV, to show what I could do, and let the people decide, did they like me or not. I think they decided they liked me.
How was working with Adrian Adonis, who you
Oh,
started the barber gimmick from him?
yeah. See, Adrian, I had a little history with Adrian going back to Vern Gagne in Minnesota. I mean, not bad history. I know him and Jesse were like partners there. And I was in there for a few months. I helped Hulk move his family to Minnesota. His gym, his cars, moved him across from Connecticut to Minnesota. I think, or no, he wasn't in Connecticut yet. Moved him to Connecticut from there. But Adrian had no self-respect. He always stunk. He was sweaty and dirty, and he had food all over him half the time. He was always high, always drunk. And I didn't even really know that they were going to stick with Adrian to the last minute. And he had come to me. He was partners with Dick Murdoch for a while. Did you know that, right?
Yeah, I remember they had the biker style gimmick there.
You know, he had been doing the flower shop, you know, and all that got moved. And then he got up with Murdoch, and Murdoch got into his head. And I met Adrian brought his wife when Hulk got married in California, and Anoki was there, and the Giant was there, everybody was there. Adrian was there with his wife. Well, I met her for whatever, 2 minutes, whatever it was. And then Murdoch had convinced Adrian somehow that I was seeing his wife on the side. And so Adrian like came at me like he was going to kill me, like you're telling my wife. And I said, brother, if you showed me a picture of her right now, I couldn't tell you if that's your wife or it ain't your wife. I don't know what your wife looks like. I met her one time years ago. I have no idea what you're talking about. You were saying, Murdoch had pumped him up because Murdoch hated me and Hulk too, both, because we're the opposite of him and that old school mentality. We were good looking bodybuilder like types, and he was a big fat beer gut, tobacco chewing redneck. And he had convinced Adrian of all this bullshit, and then so I knew when Adrian came to me with that, and we didn't fight. He said, he didn't press it. He didn't jump me because I sure would have been all over him like a cheap suit. Adrian, he actually could move and do things in the ring you'd never think that a guy with his body type and everything could do. But there's no way on earth that I wanted to have a program with him. But here's the thing. Even more than that, he didn't want to have a program with me. He quit after that WrestleMania 3. Boom. After the match was over, he got his thing and he went home. I don't know where he went, but he quit. So that first thing I heard was, now you're the barber. And Adrian quit. So I was like, whew, that was going to be a nightmare having to put up with him and all his craziness. So boom, he was gone. And then so now it was on me to try to figure out, because they gave me no warning. They didn't say 6 months before, okay, here's what we're going into this WrestleMania thing, and then you're going to help Piper, and we're going to do all this haircut stuff. And then afterwards, you're going to be the barber. And we had all these ideas. There was nothing. I went to WrestleMania. I went home for a couple of days, went back to New York, Rochester, New York, to the first TV at the War Memorial. It was an old, dumpy, rundown, crappy building. And they came and got me and said, we've got to do a photo shoot. I said, a photo shoot? Where are we going? Oh, we're going down to a barbershop. Barbershop? Okay, go to the barbershop. Give me this white coat. One of the referees' name was Mark. Had him in the chair, and I'm acting like I'm cutting his hair and stuff. And they just said, okay, now you're the barber. So what does that mean? I'm the barber. There's never been a barber in wrestling before. If there is a haircut match, if something happens one time in a territory when a guy's leaving, he gets his haircut. He's got his U-Haul packed in the parking lot. He loads up his wife and his kids after the match, and they drive to the next territory and start up. There's no hair cutting going on. So where was I going to go with it? So I was ready to quit. And I was just going nuts. And Hogan finally found me and says, what's going on? I go, I quit. They can't, after all, I've just put in 3 years of working my ass off, selling out arenas all over the country and everywhere in Canada too. And you're going to just strip that name and gimmick away from me and not give me something to go on or anything? Just drop this in my lap cold? Well, Hogan said, well, what if we do this, Brutus? What if you put a sleeper on him and knock them out, then pull them scissors out and cut their hair? I started, yeah, well, that could work, but it has to happen every single time. When I go to a match on TV, and those, the matches I'm talking about with the jobbers, 3-4 minutes, boom, boom, doing the jobbers. Everybody's got to get a haircut. Everybody. So when Hulk went back to Vince with our idea, okay, boom, boom, he liked it. So I went to Florida, got the crazy, changed up some of the outfits a little bit, got new clothes, more stuff, and then came up with a big shears. A couple months, took a couple months, and then I came up with a big shears idea, rattling barber pull, and then the barber thing. Basically, they were setting me up to fail. I think there was nowhere to go. Pat Patterson, he was mad because I didn't do the I'm gay from San Francisco gimmick, and I did the Chippendales gimmick instead. And so I think they were setting me up to fail, and then we wound up flipping it, 360 all the way back around, and then doing the barber thing, and it turned out better than they ever imagined it could.
Yeah, they gave you some great music too, and the character got over. Where can people follow you now if they want to keep in touch with you and find out what you're doing?
Boss, Twitter. What's the
Brutus underscore? I don't know. Brutus
well, there's no
Beefcake
Twitter
underscore,
anymore.
Brutus Beefcake underscore.
Yeah, it's
Brutus
X.
Beefcake.
It's called X now.
That's Brutus Beefcake underscore. I have a
TikTok, Brutus Beefcake.
TikTok, Brutus Beefcake. Facebook is
Edward Leslie.
Facebook's under my real name, Edward Leslie. Instagram, Brutus Beefcake. I mean, we're out there. I am the commissioner of Boca Raton Championship Wrestling down in Boca Raton, Florida, and we work usually about every other month. And we have a great little territory down there, a little group of guys. We got we got a giant who's 7 foot tall. We got guys.
Kerry Morton.
Kerry Morton.
Matt Mashler, Neil the Heel.
Matt Mashler, Neil the Heel, and the Vampire Warrior, Gangrel. He helps. He runs like a school down there to train guys. We have
And
Nelio.
CCW.
They have a little outfit called CCW where young guys can get experience. They used to run small shows, so it's like, man, things are so great, so good. And thank God that finally the COVID's gone. I think I'm going to travel to the UK now for the first time in like 5 years. And because I'm over there at least 2 or 3 times a year in Germany. And then I was supposed to go to Ireland and Scotland and everything was all set up. And then COVID took all that out. Oh yeah. I'm going to Nova Scotia. My birthday's in a couple of days. Going to Nova Scotia on Friday to stay for like 10 days. And we're going to do all kinds of shows all around Halifax and like a comedy show, just kind of a question and answer deal. People ask me about stuff and I tell some stories and stuff. And then some signings and good.
Anybody up there can go to Everbright and Google
What's
your
it?
name
Everbright?
for tickets.
Everbright,
And
it's
Google
called.
your name.
If you go on the internet, the Everbright, and Google Brutus, they'll have information about where you can get tickets and where the events are. There's just going to be all over we're just going to be traveling around for like 10 days.
You'll do great up there in the Maritimes because WWE doesn't go there anymore. So it's
I
hot
haven't been there in
territories.
10, 15 years at least, and always did fantastic there. I loved going to Nova Scotia. The last time I was there, it was so cold out. I remember I'm stuck in a little hotel on the side of the road, and it's like 20 below zero, and it's like
A naked guy in your room.
it was so cold. No, that was the other guy.
Oh.
And I just haven't been back since but I was up in the Maritime doing a golf tournament with Ted DiBiase like 2 years ago.
United Brothers.
And it was great. There was a Canadian ship came in, so the Canadian Navy guys were all there. We went on the Canadian Navy like a small destroyer, cruiser, whatever they call it, and had a beer party. Go figure. Only in Canada, baby. we were having a big beer fest
Tell them about my podcast.
on the boat.
Very good. Well, I just looked it up. It's actually Eventbrite. It's called
Eventbrite, okay.
It's for Brutus, and he's touring all around Nova Scotia. So Go check him out there. And Brutus, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Congratulations on the dark side of the ring. They treated you fairly well.
I
I'll let
thought
you
so.
close this off with whatever you want to tell the fans.
Well, I wanted to say I'm so proud of my wife, Missy. She did a podcast this past week with Monty and Pharaoh. And I guess these guys are well-established guys. And if you, I highly advise you to go on YouTube or wherever you can find it. And they're offering her a podcast after just seeing her on a couple of podcasts that she'd done. And so she might have her own podcast coming up here, brother. I will definitely let you know, drop you a line and let you know, and it'd be something to tune into.
And have me on his show.
You could come, you can have Missy Beefcake next time.